1 minute. Good morning. It's now 10 a.m. and I want to call this monthly work session to order. Today is September the 13th, 2022, and we have a number of topics to discuss. And to begin with, we are going to be talking about our medical self-insurance and wellness update with Lynn Peterson and Aaron Singerman. Could you please come forward? Good morning. Is the red light on? Give it a try now, Lynn.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
Great. Okay, so thank you for being here today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Asplin, Attorney Michael McKinley. I'm Lynn Peterson, and I've got with me Aaron Singerman and Allison Foster and Jeff Jinks from Aon. Also on Zoom, I'm not sure if she was able to get in yet, but that would be Ellen Butcher. She is with Marsh McLennan for our pharmacy broker. So I didn't hear her, but if she comes in, we'll be talking about pharmacy in a little bit. Before I get started, I'm going to pass it over to Erin so she can start us off with a wellness update.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, board members and superintendent. I will be providing you just a very brief high-level update on employee wellness, really spending most of the time on where we are headed this year in regards to programs and activities. But before I get to that, I would like to give you just a brief data update. We use this information to help us guide what programs we're going to put in place so we can determine which ones are going to have the biggest impact on staff. Florida Blue reports that the top diagnostic conditions by spend are musculoskeletal, cancer, and circulatory conditions. These three conditions tend to hang out in the top three through Florida Blue. It just kind of varies which one comes in 1, 2, or 3. We also conduct on-site biometric health screenings at numerous sites throughout the year, and as part of these health screenings, staff also complete a health assessment, and from these we see the top lifestyle risk factors are BMI, nutrition, glucose, and blood pressure. We also look at data from Humana. They're our EAP provider currently. They share with us why employees are calling into EAP for mental health support. I would like to note Humana is getting out of the business of EAP. They will no longer be our provider in a couple of months. We are transitioning over to a new company called LifeWorks. We anticipate that will be a very smooth transition because they are already very familiar with each other. So Humana last school year reported that top utilization requests were relationship, general stress, and legal. And I did ask them to tell us a little bit more what legal meant. And they said the majority of legal and financial calls into EAP were related to domestic issues and divorce, which is not overly surprising because of the turmoil of the last couple of years. So when you look at relationships and general stress, that all fits together, as well as a couple of landlord and tenant issues, as well as some estate planning. We also look at where employees are in regards to their preventative health screenings and their annual wellness exams and compare that to the Florida Blue benchmark. And continuously, staff are getting their exams and they exceed that benchmark number. And then last but not least, our staff interest surveys show exercise, weight management, nutrition, stress management, and resilience are the top interests by employees. I did want to point out there was a handout included that goes into some of this data a little bit further and puts it in graph form if you would like to see that. Do you mind clicking the slide? Okay.
We have it.
Okay. So continue. Okay, we're not able to get that to update to the slide. There we go. Okay, thank you. Here, as you can see, we offer several wellness programs and activities that support employee wellness. I'm not going to go through this slide and everything that's on here, but you might be familiar with a lot of the programs that are in place as they have been in occurrence for several years, and we're always looking at ways that we can enhance these programs and add new ones. So the rest of my update is going to be on where we are headed this year, a lot of this tying directly into the district's strategic plan. Employee wellness in regards to the district strategic plan was broken out into 2 goal areas. Goal 2 is encompassing of staff mental health activities, and goal 3 is kind of all the other employee wellness activities that are in place that are not specific to staff mental health. And we did this because we felt it allowed us to provide more focus and emphasis on employee mental health because it is really, really important. We know that when staff are well, it's going to have a positive impact on the classroom, and the reciprocal is true. When students are doing well, it's going to have a positive impact on the teacher in that classroom. So looking back at some of the initial focus groups for the plan, as well as information that we still hear, some of the common themes that we've talked about is staff are burned out, they have a lot on their plate. That's one piece we've heard. And 2, they would like to see self-care and stress management opportunities brought directly to them at their work site that they can do while they're there. And so thanks to the amazing foundations and partners that we have in the community, they have really helped make this happen. So I am pleased to share with you that we have some new and enhanced partnerships with Resilient Retreat and NAMI, who have agreed to come on site and provide staff emotional well-being programs. Each one of our school sites will be touched with these programs for staff to participate in. Also, we have received some generous funding from the Barancik Foundation to do a pilot staff wellness center at Tuttle. This is not the first type of this wellness center. There are a few others across the district. Some other schools have received some funding from foundations as well to put this type of space in place. And so we surveyed Tuttle staff to see what they would like to see, and the overall consensus was a calm, quiet place where they could reset and recharge during the day. So we've been working on this project. We're going to be collecting some data to share back to the Barancik Foundation and you guys as well on the outcome of this. They're also supporting some employee interest groups at some pilot schools. As of July 1st, Teledoc now offers mental health counseling for those who call in. So now employees can contact New Directions, which is part of Florida Blue. We have our EAP provider, and now we have Teledoc, where employees can call in and receive no-cost counseling. And then we have our Silver Cloud platform, part of Express Scripts. That is a self-guided behavioral health tool. And Lynn is going to touch on both of those just a little bit more during her update. The metric for the employee wellness activities is employee satisfaction. Do they feel that these programs are benefiting them? After they complete them, we send them a little survey. And for the emotional well-being and mental health activities, employee satisfaction last year was 94.2%. This here really is just a visual of all the emotional well-being programs we have in place for staff, ranging from apps they can access to the counseling services and the programs that we put in place through employee wellness. The light blue ones are new this last year. So as you can see, we've really been able to enhance the offerings that are available. And then for goal 3, a key strategy was to expand the on-site health screenings, trying to reach all school sites within a 3-year rotation. We reported last spring that we were able to screen 41% of schools last school year during 21-22, compared to 12% the year before. With more health screening sites comes more participation, comes more critical values identified where those employees were connected with the necessary resources. Another goal has been to increase communication of these wonderful programs we have in place. So we've added wellness to the new employee orientation. It's in the HR newsletter, the Wellness Champions, and really making an effort to present at the principals meetings and different leadership meetings so we can get that top-down support and they can share these programs with their staff. And then overall satisfaction for these types of activities per the surveys were 97.6%. And then lastly, I wanted to share some new and upcoming programs that we have rolling out. Not only do we want to maintain our current programs, but we want to add new and innovative, customized programs directly to the schools and departments when possible. So the first one is a dental pop-up clinic. That's a new opportunity to bring preventative and restorative dental procedures on site. This is actually happening right now down at Transportation. I was down there this morning, and it looks pretty cool. It looks just like a dental office with the chairs and the dentist there. And so we're looking forward to hearing some more on how that went today. In late September and during the month of October, although not new, it is upcoming. We're still working with Walgreens to provide staff flu vaccine clinics at all the school sites. So they're coming out to about 45 locations. In October, we have an enhanced focus on our breast cancer awareness campaign. We've always done some work in October around breast cancer awareness, but we've been able to streamline this a little bit more with support of our communications department. And so on October 7th, we have designated that as Wear Pink Day. And October 8th, Sarasota Memorial has opened up 5 of their locations across the district. That's a Saturday, so that employees can schedule their mammogram. It is an event specific to Sarasota County employees, so it should be quick and easy, and that's the feedback we heard in May. We do have a web page that will be made available with these resources, and also included on this web page is a column for employees, but then a column for the community as a whole with resources where women who meet certain financial eligibility requirements and are uninsured can also be connected to get their mammograms. So we will be sharing that out. October 14th is our health fair at STC. If you haven't been there, I recommend stopping by. And last but not least, we have brought on a part-time staff nutrition educator. If you recall, a lot of the data that we presented on slide 1 talked about nutrition. Staff are interested in nutrition. The lifestyle risk factors were one of the risk factors was nutrition. And so we have brought on someone who actually was formerly with FNS. She's a registered dietitian. She will be working with us part-time to do group workshops and webinars, hopefully some cooking classes, but she will also be doing one-on-one nutrition counseling for anybody who would like to set up a session or 2 with her, and she is a registered dietitian. So that will be shared in the very near future as well. So, and that is all I have for the wellness update.
Before I get started, do you have any questions for Erin? Otherwise, I can just go right into the medical.
Tom.
Thanks. I have 2 quick questions. Did you get an indication as to why Humana is getting out of the business?
They didn't share that with us. They just contacted us and said that they were no longer doing EAP.
And how did we select the new company?
Do you want to speak to that?
Well, we received some information from Humana, who had what was the name of the company? LifeWorks, right. And then we reached out and got some proposals from multiple other vendors from other school districts. And we've evaluated them and cost and for what they offer. And LifeWorks seemed to be at a little bit more than what Humana offered at the same price. So with the proposals that we had received from the other vendors and what they offered, we looked at LifeWorks continuing working with that company.
Okay, I will always try to look at that kind of activity from one company dropping that line of business and moving on as a indicator of a trend. And that's why I'm asking the question, to perhaps have us do a deeper dive to know as to the why that happened. So that would be something I'd be interested in following up on. Lastly, I know that we added a service last year, or a benefit last year, for bariatric work, and I was wondering if we've had, I know that we had to increase our coverage in order to cover that. Have we had people who have utilized that new benefit?
So we have not received that information from Florida Blue yet, because the guidelines that were outlined for that requirement was 6 months of dieting prior, which would leave people, right at around June if they started right in January. The benefit was effective January 1st. So we will get that update at our annual executive meeting with Florida Blue. On an aggregate level, obviously, we would not know any personal information, but we will be receiving that at the end of the year.
Obviously, I think it's a great idea if we have people that need that and would be utilizing it. But at the same time, I'm looking to make sure that we're not putting that coverage out there if it's not going to be utilized.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay, if I could have some assistance with the slides? Thank you. So the first slide that I have included here is just a historical view of the medical and pharmacy program over the past 10 years. So where we've been and where we've gone, and how the improvements that we've made have benefited the employee with better outcomes, and with creating change, behavioral change, as well as creating lower costs for the employee as well as the plan. So with that, you can see, especially with some of the programs such as the online benefit system allows for more engagement, with the employee being able to be more engaged with their benefits. And then when we changed our plan designs back in 2012, that was for behavioral change, as we saw that a lot of employees were going to an emergency room versus going to an urgent care or a primary care doctor for their treatment. So that kind of started the ball rolling. And then we've implemented additional programs to add to the behavioral change for the employees to take more ownership of their health by the Teledoc. We've got that to give more convenience for employees so that they could seek care where they want to seek care, saving time and more convenience for them. And then also, if you look to some of the Healthcare Blue Book, we've added that. And with the Healthcare Blue Book, that allows employees to shop for their care for better outcomes, lower costs, thereby the district as well as the employee will benefit from those. Overall, in all these programs that we've put in place with changes to our pharmacy, carving out and going with Express Scripts, and the additional FSRBC, working with them, you'll see that the savings over $21 million in savings from implementing all of these programs. And moving forward into the future, and I'll be talking about it in a little bit, the Pathways to Health, which is creating more employee engagement in their health and change of behavior. Just an update on Teledoc and the savings that the district is seeing from that. We've seen, well, mental health services was added to that. So just as a convenience and for better access to care, because employees now have more opportunity to have mental health counselors from all over through the network of Teledoc. So that we've just added that, haven't seen any reports just on that and on how much utilization the mental health has seen, but we'll continue to monitor that. The savings, again, includes not only the savings from reduced cost of having the primary care doctor via virtually, but also the time and absenteeism is included in those savings. So the district sees right now over $484,000 in savings from that, and we continue to see an increase in utilization with Teledoc. So I foresee this just continuing to rise as we continue to promote those services. Healthcare Blue Book, as you recall, this was added January 1st of 2021. And again, it is a transparency tool to help members shop for their care to see, not every facility charges the same cost. So it really opens the eyes of that member to say, I'm going to choose a facility that has better outcomes. Healthcare Blue Book provides the better outcomes. They've already done the background work and provides the tools for the employees to make that election and receive a reward for making that decision to choose a lower cost facility with better outcomes. From January of 2021 to June of 2022, the net savings was over $600,000. So we've seen over 837 rewards total rewards paid out for a total paid of $74,000, and that's included in that net. So that's the bottom line savings to the district. As you recall, the Benefits Committee was put in place back in 2020 to assist with making decisions with the medical plan and pharmacy plan, and it's been very successful. Bariatric surgery was added via recommendation of the Benefits Committee, and in February, the Benefits Committee, or just prior to that, had recommended that Pathways to Health be added to the plan so that it was ratified in the bargaining agreement with the union to be added as part of a requirement, not a requirement, it's a voluntary program that employees can participate in. The program allows for the employee, if they do get a wellness exam within 24 months of the look back, they will get any plan for free, as we currently do offer the employee-only tier at zero cost, as long as effective July 1st of 2023, looking back 24 months, as long as they have obtained that wellness exam, they'll get that option during open enrollment for 2024. And then because it is found that patients who regularly engage with a primary care provider have better outcomes and a 10% lower cost, that's where that 10% surcharge kind of comes from, because for those employees who choose not to want to engage with their primary care provider, they will then, only get the low PPO at zero cost for the employee level, which again, that low PPO is a very, very good plan. It has a very high actuarial value, and probably, it's 87% actuarial value, and for many other districts, that's their best plan. So our lowest plan is a lot of other districts' best plan, so it's still a really good option for our employees. And so if they opt to want a higher plan, then they would just pay a 10% surcharge on those plans.
What is that 10% surcharge of, the policy?
Contracted, it'll be of the contracted amount, so we'll figure that out with when the rates are effective in 2024. It'll be their portion,
Approximately?
the 10%.
Approximately what would that be?
So if currently it's a $900, it'll be $90 for the employee-only level. That's $900 a month, so it'll be 10% of that. And lots of communication has been already going out. We've been including it in the newsletter. We've been sending communication out to employees through the benefit system, and we will be communicating it during open enrollment. Every employee will receive the Pathways to Health notice along with their instructions for open enrollment. So we're doing our due diligence to make sure that people are making arrangements to get with a primary care provider, because as we all know, it could take quite a bit of time to get an appointment to see a primary care provider. So we want employees to start making those preparations now. We're going to now move on to what we are looking at for the future. So as we continue to want to have employees engaged in their medical care and provide lower cost with better outcomes, the value-based care is where we are headed for additional options. And we are giving you a preview of what you will see probably here in the marketplace, that this is becoming a trend for lots of districts and employers with their benefits. This slide shows that the first bullet shows the steerage to high-quality, low-cost physicians, and we're already doing that with Healthcare Blue Book. So we're already steering by providing the transparency tool to inform employees and members of the costs and the outcomes. So we're already doing that. Surgery networks, and that is something that we are going to be looking at. So it is a bundled care approach for certain surgical elective type procedures, and it offers a separate breakout package for surgeries, and I'm going to get into that in our next slide. And some of the other value-based solutions that improve quality and member impact and reduce cost are listed here. The advanced primary care, which is actually very similar to what we're going to be implementing with the Pathways to Health, really getting employees engaged with their primary care provider. And then reference-based pricing and direct contracting, they are also options for the future. Right now, we're not looking at that just yet. It's a pretty heavy lift and a whole lot more to do and a whole lot to look at. So, but it's there and something that we may look at in the future. So, talking about surgical network vendors. So I'm going to let Jeff start talking, so you don't have to listen to me, and he can talk a little bit about this slide.
So, and just even to go back to the previous slide, when you see a lot of the things that will be, that are kind of part of the landscape out there, people are starting, and entities are starting to look at how healthcare is delivered. And so when we help members engage with what are the low-cost, high-quality providers, which we're doing with Healthcare Blue Book, or even the advanced primary care, which creates a more holistic and relationship-based primary care, is getting away from kind of the traditional carrier model where they provide you with the network. There's in and there's out. Here's your copays, and you just go do what you do. The COE part is centers of excellence, which typically exists within the carrier world, and so whether it's cardio or musculoskeletal, they'll have centers of excellence where they say these are our physicians within our network that are very good, but there's not a whole lot of direction or engagement for members to understand how to get there, one. And the second is they don't really negotiate a different network price. They simply have cost and quality guidelines around those providers. So what's happened is there are vendors that have taken a bundled approach to procedures. So what that means is if you're going to have a knee replacement or a shoulder, you're going to pay for the surgeon, the attending, the facility, the radiology, all these different pieces that you see when you get your UI. So rather than have that, they negotiate with providers. They do the cost and quality screening, and they negotiate a bundled price. So if you're going to have your knee or your shoulder or have an elective procedure, this is the price. But it comes out of the carrier world. It is handled outside that. We'll get into that a little bit. But these providers, that's what it means by bundled surgical bundles. They've taken this one procedure. This is a way that an employee has the option. It's not, it has to be, but it gives them the option. If you want to get a low-cost, high-quality approach for a specific procedure, then they take it from start to finish. And so what you see, that's kind of the who, what, where, because it's not that carriers don't do centers of excellence. It's just hard for them to channel. They're not going to change their network prices because they're contracted with their network. So they don't do that. And so you have to really get out of that carrier world with a different vendor if you want to look at that. So these vendors have done that. And we have taken what you see on the next slide beyond the who, what, how, why is.
So I'm just going to let you, this is the handout. I updated your slide, so you have this updated slide in front of you. Go ahead, Jeff.
This is literally taken from our delivery system transformation team. So basically, when these vendors are out there, we get RFIs on all of them to see who does what and what is the best fit for a given client. So literally, I wouldn't want you to get all into all those bullets. That's just exactly what we see from our practice. We take a look at some of those as to, for a given entity, what would be the right partner. And so in looking at this, and we haven't gone fully down this path, but we do see some things with, for example, in the middle, the Surgery Plus, if they have the lowest cost bundles, if they have the highest quality in terms of getting the physicians, that's a key indicator, and the broadest network. So sometimes if you're going to do this, it may not be in Sarasota. You may have to travel. You may have to go to an Orlando or someplace, and the employee just doesn't want to do it, and that's fine. They would do what they do with Florida Blue. If, however, it takes it out of your typical copay deductible scenario, so you wouldn't have to pay that had you not already met it, and it is paid through this process outside, and then there's a cost share with the district. But the fact that they have done work with other entities also is a positive, just in terms of we already have some experience with who's done it and why. So this is just an idea of when we start looking at this, this is the type of work we do behind the scenes to see who's doing it and why would we consider it. So thought we would share that with you.
And the next slide just shows the
we can go
different procedures that would be included in a bundled package that these different companies would be able to handle. And then moving on, the quality and credentialing. So these companies do quite a bit of research on their surgeons to make sure that they are picking the best of the best with the best outcomes to be able to be in their network. So that is all being done behind the scenes. And then a lot of the companies, and specifically one of the companies that we know of does have the care advocates that handle everything from informational to making the appointments to scheduling, follow-up, and all of that. They do from start to finish. They are the one phone call that member would make to get everything taken care of. So it's very simple for the member to obtain those services. And then they offer different pricing structures. So depending on the utilization that you think you will see, depends on how much marketing you do and how much engagement your employees will take to this bundling type of approach. You can do a fixed, a hybrid, or a variable. So it's really just deciding, do I want to just jump all in and do a fixed and have that fixed rate, or do I want to have not much of, not put out any money and do the variable where I'm only going to pay a cost share when we see the savings from the utilization. So those are all things that are currently being explored as we look behind the scenes. And we've already looked at, for Surgery Plus, we know that all of these public entities are either have implemented or are implementing it right now. Jeff, is there anything else that I missed?
No, I think when you consider those, the key to it is the utilization, which is another term for engagement. How do you get people to actually do it if that's something they wanted to do? So there's education involved in that in terms of helping them understand that option exists. So if you're at your PCP and you realize there was some procedure that you wanted to do, you have to be aware that that's an option. How do you get into it? How do you understand where they would be, how you process it? So that's one of the reasons is you start to look at it in terms of even what pricing structure would do. It's a function of how engaged do we think our population would be. And we would handle all that in terms of that type of background information and get that to you as well. But I think I'm just going to pick up on a couple other things that you brought up before, just even going back to the EAP. The world that we're in is so virtual mental health oriented, and that engagement has just continued to go up, and I'm connecting it with that engagement we would want around surgery. Some of the EAP work in the past was done by ancillary carriers, so you could get it through your life and disability carrier. Humana was doing it, and now that demand has gone up so much that it's only really those specialized folks that just do EAP that are left. So just in terms of what are the trends and what do you see, I thought I'd kind of put that out there for you. But the other piece of it is we need to kind of climb into how medical services are delivered. So that's a part of what Healthcare Blue Book is, to understand who the providers are, who are the good ones, where's the lower cost, how am I going to get this done right, so we can not just sit back and wait and see what the experience is, but more how we can help members get to the right type of approach, procedure, facility, and so forth. So it really does hinge on that education and utilization as to which way you go if you do it and so forth. So
Shirley? On the surgical, reading some sort of an article, and they were saying how, we're moving to these things. And I know, when I was looking to have my knees replaced, I was like, well, where do you go?
Right.
So, yeah, I'd like to know who has the best outcomes. But how does that interact with my local care provider that I was using? If I was seeing somebody for my knees and I'd been getting injections and, well, now I need the surgery, will there be interaction still with my regular knee doctor.
Yeah, it would really come from that physician when he's done your diagnosis. He's kind of said, "Hey, this is where you are." Then, if we came back and you talked to the whatever vendor it might be, we'll just say Surgery Plus for the sake of conversation today, and you talk to that care coordinator, they're going to coordinate with your local and who is doing it. The function at that point becomes, okay, here are your options. Okay, you can, if let's say you're going the normal path, you would go to this surgeon, this facility, and this is where you go. Or you could go to this surgeon, this facility, and they can give you the stats as to why would you do that, what are their outcomes, what are their ratings, what's their experience been, so you can make a value decision on that, and you kind of choose which way to go.
Well, I would imagine that my company, the place that I was going for my orthopedic care to begin with, might then
Right.
say, well, wait a minute. If they're doing this, maybe I need to get competitive. I don't know if that might happen. But what about the co-pays?
Okay, so great question. So when you have that, when you're at that fork in the road, so to speak, and you went with the vendor, you're taking it out of your Florida Blue network now, and they're managing it because they contracted and bundled that. And so there's no, depending upon whether or not you had met or hadn't met your deductible. Like if you had already met your deductible and coinsurance, you might say, 6 one, half a dozen to another. It's not an impact. But if you had not, there's no copay or deductible.
There's no copay if you have not already met your
Because
copay,
that's
your
already a
deductible.
bundled charge, correct? And it's not being administered through your TPA, your carrier anymore. So they're not going to be facilitating that.
Oh.
You see what I mean? So, like when you would get the bill under a traditional carrier, they're going to go into the system, see where you are with your deductible. If there's only they apply the co-insurance, so on and so forth, and handle it that way.
Oh, so there could
that's
be
not happening.
Savings to the
Employees, well,
employee too, huh?
depending upon where they are,
Thank
correct?
you.
Sure.
And depending on the contract, because we have such low deductibles and low copays, if we want the utilization and the engagement and we want to steer and drive that towards those surgery centers, then you could offer rewards just like we do with Healthcare Blue Book. You're offering the rewards. They have bundled the transportation if you have to go to Orlando or if you were to go to Tampa. They have an allowance for transportation, hotels, food. And so all of that gets, so that the outlay for the member is a lot less. And it's attractive for people to seek that better care. Okay, can you put my slides back on? Thank you. So now we're going to move into the pharmacy update. This should be fairly quick. We've hit quite a lot on Surgery Plus, and I know that we have about just a few more minutes left. I have Ellen Butcher on the Zoom. I believe she's there. If Ellen, are you there?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, yes. Great, Ellen.
Okay, great.
So, as you know, we are with Express Scripts, and Ellen is the broker who handles all of the negotiations with her company to negotiate with Express Scripts the contracted pharmacy pricing that we have. And I'm going to let Ellen talk about this slide, which does reflect the current pricing with 2021's comparison pricing, which really just shows that it's a flat. It really hasn't changed all that much. And then we will be talking about some new contracts that will be coming. So go ahead, Ellen.
Sure. Hi, thanks, Lynn. And I'd be remiss if I didn't just take one moment and commend Lynn, Aaron, and team on all of the great work they've done for the school district. I have the benefit of being able to see a lot of different organizations and what they do within their benefit programs. And I would say Lynn and team are not just progressive, but they're very mindful of cost and impact to all of your employees. So very nice job on all of the things that you're doing there. With regard to the prescription drug program, as Lynn indicated, the program is carved out for medical, so it's a standalone arrangement with Express Scripts, and it is offered through our coalition with Express Scripts. So we have a pharmacy practice that manages the coalition and continually negotiates on behalf of our members to really secure best-in-class pricing and contract terms. And what's important there, I think, is that it's not just the pricing that's advantageous, but it's those contract terms with which for pharmacy can really have a big impact on the financials. So as Lynn indicated, what we do each year is we renegotiate the pricing with Express Scripts. It never stays stagnant. And we're continually trying to improve that pricing. So you can see that going from 2021 to 2022, if your prior pricing had been in place, the cost would have been just about flat compared to 2022. And right now, pharmacy trend is right around, between 8 to 10%, let's say. So to remain flat year over year rather than see that trend increase is pretty significant. The other thing that we track, and this is in the bottom section, the bottom third, I'll say, under where it says estimated true up, we are vigilant in tracking the performance of the plan. So we're making sure that the achieved pricing, the $7.6 million that you see in the middle of the page, is reflective of what we would expect based upon the contract guarantees. So the top section where you see the $7.3 million in expected costs is obviously a little bit less than the actual cost of $7.6 million. But what that means is that in first quarter of next year, we'll do a final reconciliation of actual cost compared to the contractual guarantees. And if there's still a shortfall, that's actually paid back to or credited back to the school district. So you are made whole based on the pricing guarantees within the contract.
Great.
Any questions there? Okay, we can advance to the next slide if it's no.
Yep.
I'm sorry?
So, no, you can talk about the newest contract that the board will be seeing this in the next probably few months, right, Ellen?
Yes. So what we do each year is we renegotiate, and the contracts run on a 3-year term. So we're looking to renew with Express Scripts as of 1/1 of 2023, and that would take the contract through December of 2025. And what we like to do is evaluate the pricing of the arrangement that you're in alongside the other arrangement that we offer, which is similar, but it's through Optum RX, one of the other large PBMs. And basically what this shows us is the deals are very similar, but Express Scripts continues to be the best arrangement for the school district, and will produce the best financial results over the life of that 3-year contract. So I know that the district is always mindful of impact to its members, and moving a pharmacy contract can result in significant disruption. So it's really great news to see that the Express Scripts contract continues to be advantageous from a pricing perspective, meaning that there's no need to disrupt employees and consider another vendor at this time.
Right, and as you see that over the 3-year period, it looks like there's about $7.5 million in savings. So very good for the district. So some of the programs that we have put in place for the pharmacy program is the utilization management, which we've had put in the Advantage Plus, which actually expands the number of prescriptions that are included in that management with step therapy, prior authorization, quantity limits, just to have a tighter grip on on the pharmacy. And with that being in place, we've seen over $4.5 million in savings from just that, adding that, making sure that program's in place. The Save On Specialty that we added in June of 2021 has produced significant savings, and it was really just a coupon program, a manufacturer coupon program that the district wasn't seeing because we hadn't signed up. The members would get the coupons, but the district wasn't having the ability to get those coupons. So we share it with Save On, they get a 25% savings, part of the shares, cost saving share. So they get 25%, we get 75% of those coupons. And so it's a win-win for us because there was no change to any of the members or anything. And then we've included the InMind solution to help. And then we've also looked at some additional programs, but the disruption was a little bit more than we wanted to. For the savings that we would see, there was a little too much disruption. So at this point in time, we weren't planning on adding any additional programs to the pharmacy. So moving on to our financial analysis of where Aon helps with their actuarial look at all of our numbers, as well as our finance department taking a look at our budget. You can see in the first column, it is the 2021 fiscal year that we did very well. We had a gain of over $5 million. And then the following year in 21-22, we're showing a loss for the fiscal year. Now, the plan runs on a calendar year, so we have to juggle the fiscal year and the calendar year. And so the projected 2022 calendar year, you can see that we have that in the middle, and it's projected that our claims will be over close to $60 million, expenses over 3.5. And so with that, we've already got the rates in place, so we should be fine. But with the budget, the fiscal year of 22-23, we're at a loss. And so all that being said, I should say Aon, with their actuarial department, took a look and saw that consulting with our budget department and where our fund balance lies, that we are at about a 3.9%, needing a 3.9% rate increase to bring in the revenue that we need to feel comfortable to have the appropriate fund balance for the medical plan. Jeff, did I get that right?
You got that right. I think it's important when you look at these. It's important when you look at these columns. As Lynn mentioned, you've got fiscal year and calendar year. So it's hard to go from left to right and have all the numbers tied because you're dealing with 6 months of one set of rates and claims, and then another, the second half with another set of rates and claims in terms of how that adds up. But when you see on the projected plan year, you're carrying the same rates and the same expected claims throughout that entire year. So that's more where you see like the gain or loss on a given year where it says 0. And we'll get into this kind of in the next two slides. You want me to kind of get into that?
So the 0 shows we've kind of advanced and put in the 3.9% rate increase to reflect those revenues coming in to show that that's where we think we'll be. If we go to the next slide, this is our reserve and our requirement for our 11208 as being self-insured. We have to keep 60 days of reserves. So you can see in each of these fiscal years, and it does go by fiscal year for our reserve, that our fund balance is pretty healthy, and that we've taken some from our reserve, from our fund balance, to offset some of the rate increase so that it wasn't so significant last year and then this year. So if we look at 2021, you'll see that we landed at 22 million, and then in the end of this past fiscal year, we're at 20 million, and then moving forward to the projected fiscal year of 22-23, we're really at 19. We have that. We always seem to carry over that initial $6.8 million that we started off to be self-insured. That was our startup fund that we like to track it until it's ever decided if it wants to be moved out of this and used for something else.
Yeah, it's important for us when we're doing our 11208, which is basically that section basically means you have to have 2 months of claims in reserve. So that middle section, if you're looking at and we'll just start on the left, the 52,139,000, and as you go across, that's what you expect to pay in claims for a year, a fiscal year. And so you basically divide that by 6 or 2 months of that to get what your reserve amount would be that needs to be set aside. So everything in excess of that number is really excess surplus, or in other words, we set the rates and we thought there would be expected claims. You would want it to even out, but it rarely does. But if you had more revenue than expenses, you build up the surplus, which is really made up of board contributions and employee contributions, right, to pay for claims. So what has happened if you are operating at a loss, in other words, you're not bringing in enough revenue to pay for claims in a given year, then the surplus goes down because you're paying those claims. But if you have excess surplus, can you then utilize that as a buffer, if you will, so that you don't have to increase rates as much for employees, which is fine. The reason we want to go through this is that you just want to keep an eye on where that surplus is. You can do that, and it's perfectly fine to do that as long as you're aware of what the impact is to the fund, such that if you're continuing to operate at a loss, in other words, you're not charging enough and or you don't have enough revenue to pay for claims, you can only do that for so long. And you don't want to have to then come back and have a high rate charged to the employees. But that's not the case here. But I just wanted us to start walking through that conversation, because this is to actually have a 3.9% rate increases, vary within market, but it keeps the employees as a part of the gain to make sure we're continuing revenue at the right amount. Does that make sense?
Okay. And you can see the historical rate history here, and then when we became self-insured in 2016 to the present, and for the future of 2023, on an average with 2.15 rate increase over those years. So I think we continue to operate very well in a self-insured environment.
Mm-hmm.
Open enrollment this year will be October 12th through November 8th, and it'll be passive. Last year was active and required because of the benefit system, but this year will be passive. So everything will roll over if employees choose not to. Of course, we always encourage employees to participate because things change. Something may not be exactly how it should be, and we always encourage them to at least take a look and make sure it's, your life may be different this year and next year you may have something happening and you want to prepare for that with your benefits. And then we will continue with the Aon enrollers, but they will be virtual and on a call center. So employees will be able to reach them after we have left here from the office. If they still have questions, they'll have someone to call. And then the rest of the benefits will remain the same. No changes to any of the rates. We did enhance dental just slightly. There were a few. Every year, Aon does take a look at the dental program, since we are self-insured and we're on a table of allowance, and we want to make sure that that table of allowance is in line with the market. So after doing that, there were some items that were either lacking or just not quite up enough for what the market was allowing for, and so it was about $110,000 change in costs, and we were operating at a gain, so we were fine with being able to do that. It only would have caused a 0.2% increase, and that was so minimal, we felt the need to just remain at the dental rates as they are currently. So that will remain unchanged with just a few added benefits for employees. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Before you do questions, if I can just add real quick, this is part of the strategic plan. So goal 3 of the strategic plan is to recruit, retain, and recognize a premier workforce. And part of strategy 3 of goal 3 is to have a compensation and benefits plan that is competitive and that really attracts people. And right now we know that the compensation part is very competitive. And I think one thing that's really pushing us over and really helping us to attract people is what we offer with benefits and wellness. And so I know Lynn and Aaron and their team have done a tremendous job of really trying to stay on the cutting edge to really make sure that we're offering our employees the top-notch experiences, whether it's something that they need a procedure done or wellness initiatives. And so our recruitment team is really trying to communicate that, and then we're trying to continue to communicate that to all of our employees, because I think today, without as competitive it is, this is the one thing that is really differentiating us from other districts. So I just want to
And we offer a lot more than other districts do. A lot more. Yeah, I think that's great. Well, thank you all. This was a great presentation. Caught us up to date on what's going on. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Tom Edwards.
Thanks. I just want to echo what Allison just said, that you guys do an amazing job of 3.9% increase in what's going on in the world is actually good, and you need to be commended for that. And then the average of 2.5% over the time. And I think it's important, that's why I asked the question about trends. The flip side of what you're talking about in terms of that surgery plus concept is that it sounds really weird when you're trying to explain it, and I could see your hesitation in terms of how are they going to even buy this one? But the reality is that you end up going to the experts for that particular surgery, and they do it over and over and over and over again every single day, and that ends up being the best possible place that you could have that surgery. And those are the trends I'm sensing in healthcare. And that's why I'm asking those questions, because it's really important for our employees to know that you're not, practicing voodoo back there trying to get health care at the most cost-effective way. You're actually giving them the best benefits possible in the most cost-effective way. So I just want to make sure that people hear that. So thanks.
Thank you.
And we were very smart in going self-insured. We
Yes.
talked about it for a number of years and finally did it, and we're really smart in doing that. We still don't have our clinics. I've been talking about clinics forever, Tom, so you might continue to look into that, because I think that would be a savings for our employees and a big help to them in reaching medical care. But I'm really proud of all the work you've done, so thank you.
Thank you. And without being self-insured, all of these programs, you wouldn't do them.
That's
If you were
right.
fully insured, you wouldn't reap
Exactly
the
right.
benefits of
We would
doing
not
it.
have the good results that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we have a discussion on Go 1, an update of what we're doing. And we have a plethora of individuals involved. And I'll turn it over to Chris Renoff and his team. Welcome.
Good. Just wanted to make sure we had everybody. So again, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Asplin, Mr. McKinley. It is great to be here today. It is really, really great to be here. As you all know, 1 month in, just over a month in, and amazing things are happening at our schools and across this wonderful district of ours. On behalf of the entire Goal 1 team, which is expansive, and you will meet and hear from a lot of folks today, we want to thank you for the opportunity to provide an updated overview of Goal 1 strategies of the strategic plan. Today's presentation will piggyback on Dr. Cantalupo's detailed district grade data presentation that she just provided at the last workshop, but it will also embed critical information from our curriculum and school-based teams. I want to say publicly, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the group, I just want to thank all of our principals for taking time away from their schools to be with us today. So thank you very, very much. As you will see, the very important work of Goal 1 in the strategic plan has intentionally been designed to be implemented and monitored by our talented strategy leads sitting right there, by the expertise of our curriculum teams, and hardwired into practice by our exceptional school leaders and their deeply dedicated teams. To best honor everybody's time, we've intentionally structured the format and the flow of today's presentation as follows. As you are aware, we've provided you all with detailed read-ahead documents. On behalf of the team, thank you all for taking time to review some of that information prior to today's workshop session. Over the course of the next 75 to 90 minutes, which I know feels like a long time, it's going to go like that. You will see and hear from a lot of folks. First and foremost, the Goal 1 strategy leads, working with our incredible communications department, have created a video overview providing highlights of their progress from a performance, progress monitoring, and problem-solving lens. It will highlight progress and achievements, noting some anticipated and potential challenges, along with identifying priorities and planned next steps. Immediately following the video, our elementary, middle, and high school curriculum teams will take a deeper dive, look at their specific data patterns and trends, sharing a summarized performance review, and strategic problem solving and targeted support examples with each of you. Embedded within their presentation, you will hear from the true practitioners, our principals, spotlighting trends that they see at their schools, providing you with a glimpse, and this is a gift. It is a glimpse into how they use progress monitoring data and strategic problem solving to directly support the development of their school improvement plans, which are a live document throughout the year at our schools, and support the PLC collaborative problem solving process. We do all of this and share this today with you for two reasons. One, to make sure that everybody, and you all as board and our superintendent, are aware that Goal 1 strategies and activities are ongoing. They are being monitored regularly, adjusted as needed to target and attain the desired outcomes. And finally, we know that positive progress is being made. But that being said, there's always more work to be done. So with that, I ask you to turn your attention to the monitor for our video from our Goal 1 team. Within the Sarasota County School District, we are constantly working as one for the success of all. Our strategic plan, goals, and related strategies help us maintain a laser-like focus to help each and every student reach and exceed the highest of expectations, all the while achieving their full potential. The essence of Goal 1 is to personalize learning and accelerate growth for all students, which really tells a story about the individualized journey of every student from the time they enter our school system until the time they exit college, career, and life ready. In our strategic plan, Goal 1 consists of 5 strategies. Strategy 1, enhance and expand early learning and pre-kindergarten programming opportunities for our families and students. Sarasota County School District is intentionally working to strengthen partnerships within our community, gathering baseline data and streamlining processes to establish consistency in expectations. Early intervention and the support for our families is the key to helping ensure all of our future shining stars are ready for kindergarten with the foundation and fundamentals to thrive socially, emotionally, and academically.
The achievements of Strategy 1 included opening 12 new pre-K classes and hiring a pre-K director, literacy specialist, behavior specialist, and a social worker. The priorities are to support new students, families, and pre-K teams, as well as continue to build partnerships throughout the community and hardwire pre-K to kindergarten transition.
Strategy 2, maximize learning for all students through a multi-tiered system of supports. There are 3 distinct levels of support. Tier 1 instruction ensures that all students have access to essential grade level standards. Tier 2 instruction will provide additional time and responsive support to learn essential behavior and academic standards. And Tier 3 focuses on intensive remediation in universal skills. To support each of these tiers, collaborative teams utilize data-based problem solving to measure and respond to student learning.
Strategy 2 achievements included providing ELA and Math Best training to all teachers and completed Tier 1 through Tier 3 behavior resource training. The priorities consist of aligning our intervention response to support the PLC process and ensure access to essential grade level curriculum and develop standardized rubrics.
Strategy 3, implement a collaborative planning framework that ensures high levels of student learning, engaging in the professional learning communities model. This strategy is all about focusing on less what we do and more about why and how we do it. It's a never-ending process of continuous learning and collaborative problem solving with the sole intent of helping each student reach the highest levels of learning. These PLC teams consist of educators committed to working collaboratively, sharing ideas to enhance and then improving and reflecting upon their own teaching practices to establish a learning environment where the dignity of all students is honored.
Within Strategy 3, the achievements included Principal, AP, and District Spring Professional Learning, District Guiding Coalition formed, District Guiding Coalition work groups established and meeting regularly, and PLC Institute held in July for over 350 attendees. The priorities are to establish district-wide timeline for implementation, building capacity across the district and in schools, revise PLC contract language, and expand PLC certifications.
Strategy 4, provide arts and experiential learning opportunities for students that honor multiple modalities and engage all student groups. Sarasota County Schools truly believes the arts are an essential element of a well-rounded education. It's proven that experiential learning helps increase engagement and ownership of learning and achievement. The arts connect students and families to form a true partnership in the student's educational journey.
For Strategy 4, these achievements included professional learning for all arts teachers by discipline and celebrated 10 years of experiential learning via EdExplore SRQ with 100% school participation. The priorities are to personalize site visits to schools and progress monitor the implementation of programming, as well as analyze arts and experiential learning enrollment for all students.
And Strategy 5, equipping all students for life readiness through access to accelerated, specialized, college and career-focused instructional opportunities. Strategy 5 strives to provide students a deeper understanding of the numerous career options and the necessary education, training, and paths to obtain them. This can be achieved by ensuring access to advanced and specialized coursework, increased career education, focused transition planning from pre-K through high school, and work-based learning opportunities. In the end, success will be measured by the fact that each student has a well-thought-out, defined, personal plan that prepares them for their unique post-secondary journey.
Lastly, the achievements for Strategy 5 include a college, career, and life readiness program manager hired, middle school and high school career advisors chosen, high school career center services identified, and CCLR student planning portal was selected. The priorities are to define school-level career center operations and onboard new student planning portal system.
Collectively, the Goal 1 team is honored, proud, and privileged to engage in this most worthwhile and purposeful work. Through this, we can develop a culture of collective responsibility, ensuring, as a school district, we all own the success of every student in our district.
So wonderful video, Mr. Renoff in the Goal 1 strategy leads. So in reality, I love that sometimes that seems like a theory, and we're going to actually talk about practice. So you'll hear from elementary, middle, and high, and what does this actually look like on a school campus? And so I'd like to introduce our Director of Curriculum, Kelly Ellington, who will go over our trend data, but also Mrs. Throw and Dr. Hutchinson, who will talk about what does this look like at the school level. So Mrs. Ellington, can you kind of go over our trends and data?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and good afternoon, everyone. I believe that we have a different PowerPoint. Okay, great. So first we wanted to just start with sharing with you some of the highlights and performance highlights from the 21-22 school year. You'll remember last year our teachers, our elementary school teachers, were implementing new, let's see if I can go forward. Let's see. Our elementary school teachers were implementing new ELA curriculum and new ELA standards. Often when new standards or new curriculum are being implemented, we notice an implementation dip, and oftentimes that will result in huge decreases. Our teachers implemented both, and so we were excited to see and encouraged by the results that we saw because in our ELA having had to do both of these, for our teachers doing both. If we look at our first three bullets, we can see those highlights there. Overall achievement in ELA maintained or increased at 17 of our 23 elementary schools, 21 of 23, and 19 of 23 schools increased performance in ELA learning gains and ELA learning gains of lowest quartile, respectively. So again, with a brand new curriculum and brand new standards, kudos to our teachers for that work. 20 of our 23 elementary schools increased performance in both math learning gains and math learning gains of the lowest quartile. And we believe that these results were impacted by the activities you see on this slide, the initiatives and projects and strategies that we have on this slide that we had in place last school year. The first bullet talks about our district content area program specialists who met regularly with administration and support staff from both Emma E. Booker and Wilkinson Elementary Schools. These partnerships allowed for collaborative, evidence-based problem solving, targeted professional learning, and also collaborative planning and analysis of student data all during the school year with those teams. And then all schools were introduced to the new ELA progress monitoring tool last year. This, along with the guidance document and the decision trees, provided direction to collaborative teams with aligned resources for the first time for intervention for all of our teachers at all of our schools. And we presented that in depth at a couple of workshops last year, so you may remember some of that, where we talked about those aligned standards-based resources that were made available to every grade level teacher at the beginning of last year. And again, that allowed for that collaborative, evidence-based problem solving to take place all during the year so that teachers could appropriately respond and tailor their instruction. We also had our literacy leadership walkthrough tool that was new last year. So that allowed teachers to, again, and school teams to look at data. We revised our instructional focus guides to enhance and strengthen Tier 1. And we know our schools use Jumpstart funds to provide tutoring and interventions, and also some allowed for grade level teams to collaborate. We'll probably hear about more of that in just a minute. And then no doubt you remember that our ESE reading pilot allowed for about 75 of our ESE teachers to engage in in-depth professional learning throughout the year. So we feel like those were a lot of the reasons why that impacted those results. But as Mr. Renoff said, we are not finished yet. Our work is not done. We still have a lot to do. So these three bullet points are what will guide our work this year. These will be the ones that drive our strategic support for the 22-23 school year. We want to see more of our elementary schools increase performance in math achievement. We want to see more of our elementary schools increase performance in science achievement. And we definitely want more of our third graders reading at grade level. In fact, our 22-23 metric for goal 1 of our strategic plan is that 70% of our third graders meet grade level expectation. That's pretty lofty to go from 64 to 70%. And that's with not really being exactly sure of how the FSA results will compare to the new FAST results. However, with intentional progress monitoring and that collaborative problem solving, we do believe we can get there. And that's where this slide shows some of the ways we're going to get there. As mentioned earlier, one of our successes last year was implementing evidence-based problem solving. And so we're going to continue that this year. In fact, our elementary team uses the same strategy when we look at school level data. And in doing that, we've identified strategies and supports for our schools. We've determined which schools would get intensive support, targeted support, and general support. So if you look in that overall column, that's listed there, along with our instructional facilitators. Last year, we worked with about a dozen instructional facilitators. They were mostly assigned to Title I schools. This year, because of the additional allocation of staff, that number has moved up to over 30 instructional facilitators we'll be working with. And these support team members at our elementary schools, they'll be able to facilitate collaborative planning with teachers, support the teachers as they analyze the data, determine high-impact strategies, and so on. And then that last line there talks about the revised progress monitoring and intervention response. And we've done that. The revisions in that progress monitoring tool are going to support the collaborative team discussion and answering the questions 3 and 4 from the PLC process, namely, how do we respond when some students do not learn, and how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient? So that progress tool will help with that. If you look across the top, you'll see that evidence-based problem solving is, again, a priority in all content areas. But if we go down the ELA column, you'll see Strauss and HITS grants listed there. I think you know the Strauss grant that was funded by our Community Foundation of Sarasota is really focusing on science of reading with small group instruction and will enhance the Tier 1 instruction. And also there's a coaching component that will be able to strengthen the coaching support of those facilitators and our district specialists as they work with all teachers. The HITS grant isn't officially approved yet by DOE. We're hoping to hear soon, but that will provide additional opportunities in professional learning in the area of the science of reading, including some dyslexia certifications, additional Orton-Gillingham training for classroom teachers, and a Tier 3 intervention Wilson pilot at 3 of our schools. These learning opportunities, along with the supports already provided by our reading recovery teachers and literacy lessons teachers, will continue to build our teachers' toolboxes to respond to any student, their individual needs in the area of reading. When we look at math, we see that where reading was last year, new standards, new curriculum for math this year. We've added some grade level benchmark assessments at 2 through 5 to help us progress monitor throughout the year. We have our online instruction tool for math, Dreambox, which is highly adaptive. And we also have in development intervention decision trees similar to how we have with reading. So we'll have those for math that teachers can use in that problem solving process. For science, we're working hard to make sure we have a consistent daily instructional block at each grade level at every school. We'll have our online standards-based, Florida standards-based learning system, PENDA, which is at 3rd, 4th through 5th grade. And we're continuing with our benchmarks and inventories at 3rd through 5th as well, which will be evidence-based data collaborative teams can analyze to make those problem-solving decisions. And then just to emphasize a little bit further, in addition to what we just shared on the last slide, we are really focusing efforts on 3rd grade and 2nd and 3rd grade because we want to impact those 3rd graders and make sure they're reading at grade level. Within our decision trees, we added a phonological awareness assessment specifically for 3rd graders that have demonstrated a phonics deficit, so teachers will know how to back up a little and what they need to do to respond to that. Our team will have an extra layer of progress monitoring support and problem-solving support. We'll have professional learning targeted for our 2nd and 3rd grade teachers on phonological awareness and phonics, and we'll have that focused professional learning for our instructional facilitators to really target 2nd and 3rd as well to continue to help them. So those are a few of the things from the district perspective, but let's hear from our principals. I believe Dr. Hutchinson, principal of Venice Elementary, is going first.
Well, good afternoon, and Chair Goodwin and board members, and Dr. Aspel, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk. It's never a problem to get our principals to talk about our schools. I think the challenge will be getting us to stop talking about what's happening at our schools. But we are extremely proud to be here today to represent our elementary colleagues, and just to kind of highlight some of the great things that are happening on our 2 campuses over the last school year, and then some of the pieces that we're doing to try and continue to grow, because we know that success is always growing. We don't want to be stagnant in our work with our teachers and staff and with our students. And so, getting a chance to kind of highlight some of the positive results that took place last school year. Up on the screen, you can see that there are a number of kind of data points that we are very proud of at Venice Elementary. But a couple that we just want to really highlight is that we truly do believe in supporting our district mission and vision of working as one for the success of all. And so when we started last school year at Venice L, we started with the concept or theme, if you will, of one for all. And it really permeated everything that we did. And not only did our students and teachers achieve our highest level of success that Venice Elementary has achieved during the FSA administration history at 77% of our total points earned. We are extremely proud of the work that we did with our students with disabilities, as we really are looking at making sure that we are supporting all of our students, not just those that fit into a neat little box, but those that need us to look at how we are teaching and supporting them in a different way. And so I'm very proud of the fact that when we looked overall at our 7 school grade components, our students with disabilities at Venice L scored the highest in the district of all schools, not just elementary, but elementary, middle, and high in 5 of those 7 school components, school grade components for our students with disabilities. In our other 2 that we did not score as the top performing school, we were number 2 and number 3 respectively in those areas. And we are also extremely proud of our students who are in our Access Magnet classroom. So our students who are on an alternate curriculum and alternate assessment, very proud of them. And that kind of our last bullet there is that 100% of our students scored a 3 when it came to ELA and science when they took the FSAA, and 71% scored a 3 when it came to math. So very proud of the work that our entire school team really is doing when it comes to supporting all of our learners. And when we think about some of the pieces that we put into place to help us reach those levels of success, it really went back very much to intentional planning. We talked about the Jumpstart Grant and some of the opportunities that we had through that. Our school team and our leadership team decided in the summer prior to last school year that we were almost exclusively going to use our Jumpstart funds to provide monthly planning opportunities and days for our teams. And when we talk about our teams, we're talking kindergarten at the time through 5th grade. And during that time, our teachers had an opportunity to work with our incredible assistant principal, Caitlin Ranlett, to be able to work in kind of a backwards planning design, where we implemented a number of some of the pieces that we've started learning about through our PLC work, which is kind of looking at the end in mind. What are those essential standards that we want our students to be able to learn at the end of this unit? And then we planned our instruction to support those standards. And it wasn't just about, again, teaching to a test. It's about what is it that our kids really need to know and be able to do, and then how are we going to make sure that we get them to that point, and then what do we do if they don't get that? And so we started not necessarily even formally calling it a PLC or the PLC framework, but what we did is we then would say, okay, which of our kiddos have not quite gotten what they needed? And then some of our teachers and teams started sharing kids during our intervention block. It may have been an area that, my colleague did really well with helping to support their kids, and I would send a couple of my kids who didn't quite get that concept yet, and they would send me a couple of theirs that did, and it was just some really great work that we think really led us to be able to be intentional in identifying what are our next steps when it came to supporting our kiddos. Even prior to last year, and we'll go back a number of years, and I want to credit Ms. Del Castillo when she was the principal at Venice Elementary. They started the process of of really looking at how can we get as many of our kids who are identified as a student with disability into our gen ed classrooms. And so last year, we had 100% of our students with disabilities fully included in every single grade level classroom. And so we really do believe that the work that has happened over the last number of years there in terms of supporting our students with disabilities has helped lead to the success that we have had last year. And then to cap off the continuum of services that we want to provide to our students, we also, for the first time, were able to implement an advanced work class at our kindergarten level. Venice Elementary is very proud to be a magnet program for students who are identified as gifted in grades 1 through 5. We also, this past year, implemented, were able to identify students who are ready for not a gifted program per se, but an accelerated program at kindergarten that then has helped us build that continuity as we look vertically throughout our entire gifted program. Always focusing on the idea of, working as one for the success of all. And then, this year we have continued to be very intentional about the work as we are engaging much more strategically in our PLC framework that we've learned about over the summer, and we appreciate the board's support and Dr. Ostland's support as we are implementing that. So to do that, though, we absolutely know that there has to be a high level of trust. And so we started this year with our staff talking about, to go fast, go alone. To go far, go together has been the piece that we have really talked about, and the idea that we are just embedding in all of our work. So as we continue our work with our Jumpstart funds, we are continuing our tier 1 planning. We've seen that works. We also are looking at continuing to then support in other areas where we want to and notice that we have a need to do so. So for this upcoming school year, through our pick a position, which again, we appreciate that support, we were able to identify a reading interventionist to help try to intervene as early as possible. So our reading interventionist is working with our kindergarten and first grade students. She is participating in the literacy lessons, professional development, and really looking at a great opportunity for us to continue to support students in their earliest development of learning, so that we're not trying to close a major gap when they're 4th and 5th graders, that we try to address that when they're a little bit younger. We added an additional ESE teacher based on our enrollment numbers to help support our students. And we are very, very, very proud to be the only non-Title I school that is piloting and implementing one of our early learning classrooms. So we have a new pre-K early learning classroom for our 4-year-olds. It is a beautiful classroom. We have about 14 students in there. A couple of students with disabilities in an inclusion class. The rest of the students are non-disabled peers. And all of those students, though, which we are extremely excited about, are zoned to Venice Elementary. And so we know that they're going to be our kindergartners and our first graders. And we are so grateful for the opportunity to intervene and support our littlest little Indians as early as possible. So, we have great things that are happening at Venice L, and appreciate the opportunity to share those. We are mirroring what a lot of our other colleagues at the elementary level are doing as well, and extremely proud of the work that our students, our staff, and our community have done certainly over the last few years. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Hutchinson, I want to thank you for all that you're doing there. I mean, you notice when you walk in the front door, it's a very special place. And I'm not far from retirement, so you'll be seeing some of me, I'm sure. But I want to put you on the spot because I like you, and I know you'll answer me truthfully. I'm hearing, not from our district, but I'm hearing from some people around the state who are pretty smart, that this new testing model that we are implementing this year is more difficult to take, and that it takes longer time than the former testing model that we used. What are you seeing?
So I can definitely say that, as you implement anything that's new, there's going to be kind of an implementation struggle, if you will, and some challenges that come along with that. I can say that folks are working really hard to try and overcome that. While our kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers, when they came in to take their test, and again, this is 100% kudos to our assistant principal, Caitlin Ranlett, who's our testing coordinator. She makes it look like Disney World. They show up and it looks like, hey, this is great. It's, 30 minutes to do their assessment and they're out the door. She has spent certainly hours and hours after school, evenings, during the day to prepare for that. We are just right now in the middle of 3rd through 5th grade in terms of the testing. And so as we, I think, kind of close that out, I know we internally have already talked about having an opportunity to debrief with our team, my leadership team, about what kind of barriers were there, what went really well, and what do we have to think about when we roll around to our next kind of AP period, which will be in December and January. So that if there are pieces that we can do to make it more efficient, we want to do that, because we want the data to come out of there to be the most accurate data that's possible, because then we're going to use that in our data chats and conversations with our teachers and families to make sure that we are programming as accurately as possible when it comes to the needs of our kids. So I do think that there's some challenges in terms of implementing anything new that comes along with that. Would love to certainly have more folks to be able to handle some of the behind the scenes work, so that, again, we don't ever want our teachers, when they come to the labs, to feel that this is taking away from instruction. We want it to be beneficial. But I think there's right now some pros and areas that we can continue to refine as we move through the process and learn more about it.
And my second question and final question is, I am not hearing any feedback or any problems related to the new standards. I can remember in 2011 when we went to Common Core and the myriad of professional development that was done in this district. I remember Doug Fisher coming to town and others, and I sat in on parts of those, and it was rather involved, and then we modified it a bit with 90 changes to make it the Florida standards, and now we have a standard that I think comes from Hillsdale College originally. But what do you think about these new standards? Are teachers not having a problem? Are we not having any issues with them?
In terms of the standards themselves, they are really, the best standards are just, for the most part, tweaks on some of the standards that existed prior. Okay. So I do think that our teachers are feeling really confident with the standards and kudos to Mr. Renoff and Dr. Johnson and our curriculum team for providing, and Ms. Ellington for providing the ongoing professional development for our teachers. I know anytime, again, you have something new, there's going to be, right, pieces that you have to overcome.
That's my concern. And usually, as you say, you might see a tick in the testing results as a result of that, because if we look back, we see those, what did you call that?
Dips, implementation dips.
Yes, a dip, an implementation dip.
Sure.
It will soon be called an ID, because we acronym everything. But at any rate, I just wondered if what your thoughts were on that. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then Mrs. Throw, if you'll share about Atwater.
Sure. I'm Mrs. Throw, the principal at Atwater. Can you hear me? Is it up? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's very fitting that I follow up after Dr. Hutchinson, as I followed him after he left Atwater. So kudos to him and all the great things that he had in place before I came. And we've been enhancing a lot of things and working with changes in curriculum and standards and whatnot at Atwater. We are very proud that we are, from last year's data, the highest performing Title I school, elementary school in Sarasota County. And that has a lot to do with the support we get from Kelly's team and the Title I office as far as budgeting and allowing us to make decisions on a school based on how we're going to use those funds. But last year, our Title I funds helped us with many different things to support our teachers through tough times and through changes. And I think that kudos to them and how they've implemented lots of support to our teachers. We did see a 24% increase overall in grades 3 and 4 in math last year. I'm excited with the new curriculum and the addition of DreamBox. I know that that will continue to grow school-wide, and I would like to report that the kids love DreamBox. Our teachers are getting into it and getting excited to see the data it's producing, and it's been, I think, a nice new energy level with the kids with the new addition of DreamBox. So thank you for that. We also saw a 16% increase overall in grades 3 and 4 in ELA. We did a lot of work last year utilizing our Title I funds and our Jump Start funds to allow the teachers time to look at data time to collaborate together, time to learn from each other. And I think that a lot of the efforts that were put in last year to that were shown in that data. Our grade 5 cohort of students made a 6% gain in ELA proficiency. However, we did see a dip in math and science. And on the next slide, I'll talk about how we've addressed that. So overall, last year, our data showed a 33-point increase from the following school year. We have lots more to do. I predict we will see double that next year with all the great things that are going on at Atwater. In our performance review, one of the things that we did implement last year was mentoring and coaching of our bottom quartile students. My assistant principal, Mrs. Kisner, and I spent a lot of time with those kids. We sent up a mentoring program for the children that were struggling to get work done, that needed extra motivation, needed extra incentives in place. And I think we got a lot of positives back from the teachers on that. It took one thing off of their plates that we were monitoring that data daily and speaking to those kids. We also did one-on-one student conferences prior to the students taking their iReady diagnostics last year, talking about the importance of that data and how it was going to determine their path for the next quarter of instruction. So I think that that goal setting helped the teachers take one thing off of their plates, and it gave Mrs. Kisner and I a really good indication of where the kids were, what kind of support they needed, and what their aspirations were for their growth. Last year, a game changer, and thank you for this, our instructional facilitator that we received last year as a Title I school was a phenomenal boost to not only Mrs. Kisner and I, but to our teachers. She was phenomenal, Mrs. Pakula, and she brought back so much from the trainings that Kelly and her department were able to give them. She was able to attend every CPT with the teachers. She was on the ground. She knew what was going on. She was able to support them in their Tier 1 instruction, but also in Tier 2 and Tier 3. So kudos to that position. And this year with our new PICA position, and I'm getting ahead of myself, we are doing another instructional facilitator. So we will talk about that in the next slide. My fourth grade team last year really took hold of the whole PLC mindset. We were able to regroup with our writing data, and we did see an increase in that with our fourth and fifth grade students. They took the data, they looked at trends, they looked at what they did well in their classrooms, and they not only helped each other with planning, but they did regroup the kids to focus on some of those skill deficits that we needed to focus on. Grades 1 through 5 participated in days where we were able to get subs for them using our Jumpstart funds and our title funds, where my instructional facilitator, my AP, and myself were able to be in there all day looking at data, talking about concerns, talking about what we needed to do and what direction we needed to go. We are continuing that this year as well. My 3 ESE teachers were part of the LLI grant last year. They still come in and talk about it. They're very collaborative in what they're doing with that. We were able to add more this year as well. I think that that learning has been huge for our ESE department. It has really put them on the path to being as well trained as the rest of our school when it comes to looking at reading, looking at running records, and really digging into what our ESE kids need. So that has been phenomenal. We utilize Jumpstart funds and title funds to allow those teams to plan together. I mentioned that already. We also have been awarded last year and applied for this year the platinum status for PBIS. I think our PBIS team works very hard to make sure it is a school-wide goal, and our behavior data has shown great improvements with that implementation. So we're excited to see that as well. Our 2 reading recovery teachers serviced 16 students last year who started at an average text level of 2 and ended the year at an average text level of 19, which is a full year's growth in a 20 weeks time. I have 2 phenomenal reading recovery teachers who not only work with my first grade, but they have taken time to work with my kindergarten, and they continue to work with their second and third graders each year to make sure that the growth that they made in reading recovery isn't lost as they transition to not having that much intensive support. Our LLT created goals to increase student achievement. We were training our teachers on making sure that time when they're not in small groups is well spent, working on reading stations, cooperative learning activities, and increasing incentives for iReady work that they do during those rotations. Moving on to problem solving, how did we change up this year? We did add 2 additional units that I'm using as instructional facilitators that are funded through Title I. We are doing more of a focused, intentional look at the content areas. They are working with everyone, but I did pull a 4th grade math specialist out, and she is doing coaching. She's doing full implementation of the new math curriculum. She's in the classrooms doing side-by-side coaching. She's with them at planning. She's attending their CPTs and working towards full implementation of our PLC model as well. We started the school year with an increased focus on collaboration, knowing that the training that we received over the summer about PLCs, where we're going with that. So we have been hitting our teachers really hard with the idea that collaboration is the way to go. Teacher efficacy will give us the most bang for our buck. And our current staffing with our title folks has really helped to support that, to help Mrs. Kisner and I, because we can't be everywhere. And that has been a huge game changer for us. We have expanded our mentoring program. We've brought our behavior specialists into it, and we are meeting weekly to look at kids based on data who need a little bit extra. They need to come see us. They need a lot of extra incentives to make sure they're getting their work done, and really laser focused on what needs to be done. So that is something that I know we're going to get great bang for our buck. My homeschool liaison is working hard on attendance, making sure we have kids there every day, and that's not becoming a roadblock for them. Additional ESE staff is being trained. They were brought into the cohort. 2 of those teachers are running my EBD units, and I think that with this new intensified reading instruction for those kiddos, we're going to see a lot of changes academically and behaviorally as they see that success in reading. We did have a deliberate placement of staff. We did some moving around to really match our teachers with like-minded teachers on their grade levels to really work on that collaboration this year. Our instructional facilitators, along with our student support teachers, are really focusing on that Tier 1, focusing on the implementation of the best standards, on the implementation of not only benchmark from last year, but the new math curriculum this year. And I have gotten lots of great feedback from the teachers about how helpful that has been, and I've seen a lot more teachers working together, sharing ideas, sending out those emails that show that they are all on the same page, moving in the same direction with that. And to combat some falling science scores, we have formed an after-school group of teachers who are focusing on looking at what is coming up in our curriculum, making sure the teachers have the supplies they needed. We are spending some money out of Title I and Jumpstart to make sure that the teachers have those supplies on hand for hands-on activities to bring science alive in the classroom. My instructional facilitator was a science teacher on the wheel at her old school, so she is thrilled that we are really going in that direction and making sure her support is where it needs to be for those teachers. And I think
That's a wrap.
That was it. Take a breath. Great job, Cindy. Great job, Kirk. So, I know you guys heard about what's going on with elementary and all the wonderful things we're doing. And, of course, we will be back to update you. Next, of course, we will have secondary middle school with Mrs. Meckler and Mr. Cantis, as well as Tomas DeVerno to share what's going on with middle school after they leave elementary. So we appreciate your time as well.
I love what you're doing at Atwater. I think it's great. Atwater is one of my favorite schools as well. It's just so far down there, but it was it's a green building. It was built with technology for I don't remember what level, silver level. And I've always loved the whole dynamics of the school, and I will be down to see you as well. But thanks for everything you're doing for our kids, because it makes a big difference. And you're the most southern of our schools. And at night, I forget it. I can't find it at night. It's too dark. Tom?
A couple things I saw as an observation. First off, I hear this all the time from teachers and principals that I interact with, and this is an example. What we talk about up here on the dais and what you are all actually doing in the schools and in the classrooms are two different things. And I really appreciate hearing the hard work and the efforts that you put in on a day-to-day basis in the classrooms and the work that you do and the differences that are made for our students. It's heartwarming, and I needed to acknowledge that. Also, I think it's important for the public to hear that what I'm sensing is we're hearing what you did last year and what you're doing this year, and you're making that really great analogy, and you're showcasing that. And that's an example of our strategic plan. And what's so important about the continuity of the strategic plan and the enhancement of what you did last year and where you're going this year, and to stay the course. I think it's that Dr. Asplund, that's his wheelhouse. He's quite the academic, and it showcases why they hired you. Great job, everyone.
Thank you.
Shirley?
I too want to compliment you all, what you're doing and the focus you're doing. And I know some of that goes to our new superintendent too, but that we're all focused on the academic achievement, and to hear over and over how you're using those jumpstart funds, how you're using the pick a position. So I think that flexibility that we're giving the schools is helping. Last year wasn't our lowest, not the year before last, wasn't our lowest point when we hit down to, was it 696? I mean, in 2016, we were at 677 in total points. And, everybody thought everything was wonderful, and there was no negative stuff in the papers, everything was, and then we got a new superintendent. And we started focusing when we were looking at what we were going to do, what we're going to be focusing on. And we said, we want to make sure that we see increases in the points that we're getting and what our scores is. Because some of us realized that, hey, we were just a couple of points away from getting a B and losing our A. And that was back in 2016. And that superintendent brought us up, I think it was 65 total points. So that, we got up to 742 points in 2019, and then what happened? We had COVID. I mean, we were on our way pushing that up, and we dropped. And I don't think it's because we took our mind off of it, but I think with this new strategic plan and our new superintendent and our new staff and our PLCs, we are all working together to bring those up. And I am just so amazed at what we're doing. And hopefully, what you said, I think needs to be said to all of our elementary principals, and I'm just make sure it's required homework for all of our principals to listen to what we've done, not what we've done. You've done it. I'm not taking any credit for it. You guys have done it, and what you're doing, and I'm really excited to hear what's happening on the middle and high school levels too. But really, that focus is on not so much the points at the end, but each student and how we're going to do it. And I like that we're giving you that flexibility with those jumpstart funds and those pick-up positions. And because we want to hear from you what it is you need to bring us up and to get all of those students at a grade level. And I'm just so thrilled. I'm really excited about our programs that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And next up, we have middle and high schools.
And the success just keeps on growing.
That's right.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having us today. We really do appreciate it. I'm going to make a few comments before we get started. First of all, I am incredibly proud of the work our schools did last year and what they're doing this year every day. Certainly last year was an extremely challenging school year. Despite that, you've recognized the gains that we've made across the board, and we're very proud of that. And certainly the credit goes right here to these folks that are sitting up here representing all of our schools and our staff at our schools. Despite the challenges, we were definitely super focused last year and super creative in our problem solving. I think that's what keeps us in this business and keeps us going, is that problem solving approach. You heard it with the elementary repeatedly. Every day you walk into the building, these folks walk in their building and they're problem solving a number of factors. But you know what it allows us to do this year, what we learned last year, in a very difficult year, we can implement those things that were successful and will continue to be more successful this year. I'm very confident of that. I think something I'm very proud of at secondary level, we continue to work to get down to an individual student level. When you have a school with 2,600 students in it, that's hard to do. It's not easy to do. But we're learning, and I will say this, through the PLC process, we're going to get better and better and better at that, and that's something I'm very excited about. That keeps me motivated from year to year. The district, through Jumpstart funding, certainly at Dr. Johnson My Cost Center, we looked for every opportunity to support the schools. If a request came in for funding, we found ways to make that happen. I'm not aware of one request that we didn't fund that was a reasonable request and that was vetted. We still have post-pandemic challenges that we're working diligently to overcome, and we recognize that. Certainly, academic challenges in the area of ELA and reading, those are the most challenging at secondary as students are coming out of that pandemic. That's an area that we're very focused on. I want to give credit to our curriculum directors as they've devised schemes and ways to support us in our reading moving forward. Behavior challenges that we recognize came out of the pandemic we saw last year, and we're seeing signs that we're overcoming some of that. And certainly staffing challenges. I want to give a shout out to our HR team. They're working diligently to find ways to overcome some of these staffing issues, but it is still very difficult sometimes to attract teachers in a district where housing costs are extremely high and the pool of candidates gets smaller and smaller. So finally today, I'm very excited to recognize that we have two highly accomplished secondary principals here. Very difficult work, and I want to welcome Aaron Del Castillo, the principal of Riverview High School, as well as Mr. Dinverno, the principal at Venice Middle School. They're here today to share their successes and challenges, and now I'll turn it over to Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Cantis. You know, as I've listened to these presentations today, there's two words that I keep hearing over and over again, and that is intentionality and focus. I think that is what has really caused us to be strategic in our work, and I also think it's what has made a difference in our gains and also going to make a difference in our areas that we need more focus on. So starting by looking at the middle school data in some of our successes, you'll see that intentionality really came from our middle school principals and our teachers in providing specific data-driven interventions for those students with unfinished learning in mathematics. That's really what led to those gains in learning gains as well for our lowest quartile. We've seen those students who have fallen behind starting to close that gap, reaching towards proficiency, And I'm optimistically cautious that we will see more proficiency this year with mathematics because, again, we're going into a new test and new standards and not exactly sure what that will look like or how our students will perform. In addition to that, our civics performance has remained strong. We are at 84% proficiency last year. Those results are within 2 percentage points of where we were pre-COVID, and a steady increase in our civics performance since we transitioned from having civics in grade 7 to grade 8 back in 2016-17. We know that building that strong foundation in U.S. history helps with that background knowledge for students, concepts and skills, which then tends to make them much more successful when they hit that civics exam. And then in a few minutes, Mr. DeVerno will talk about the success of Venice Middle, and congratulations to them for their 5% increase from 62 to 67% last year. Let me move on here. Other highlights from last year included our focus on preparing every teacher to be ready for that transition to the best standards this year. Every ELA teacher and every math teacher had 12 full hours of professional learning. I think they left feeling very confident as they move into this year of full implementation. We're working diligently to catch up our new teachers as quickly as possible to make sure they are also ready and fully prepared for that transition. Of the 84 new middle school teachers that we have hired thus far, 30 of those teachers are new math teachers to middle school this year, and 18 of them are English language arts teachers. We piloted a new reading program last year called Common Lit 360 at Bickler Middle School and at Heron Creek for those students who are 2 to 3 years below in reading. This year, we have expanded that resource to all middle schools based on feedback from those teachers as well as feedback from students about their engagement with that text. And now we are continuing to support those teachers with ongoing professional learning to help them understand how we scaffold for those striving readers to make sure that they are constantly being exposed and taught with on-grade level text. We are also looking at how Orton Gillingham compares to our middle school Just Words Wilson reading program that we are using for our most striving readers. And we're doing deep data dives into our decoding intervention, which also supports vocabulary development leading to greater comprehension, specifically looking at various student groups and how they are performing with those interventions. We also continued building our accelerated learning pipeline for algebra and geometry, providing more opportunities for students to participate in that advanced coursework beginning in grade 6. And with the help of Tripp Jennings and now Dr. Amy Earle and our new program specialist, Dr. Tiffany Jennings, we're working to continue to explore those new possibilities in CTE and elsewhere for additional accelerated learning opportunities. We are focused at middle school on getting back to our instructional model of research-based best practice at the Tier 1 level. All of our new teachers, as a matter of fact, they're being trained today, are being trained on the gradual release of responsibility framework. And we just also started our first 20-hour asynchronous course yesterday with 25 teachers and 2 newer administrators participating in that first rollout. As we looked at our data and analyzed our results, obviously there were 3 major areas of focus that became crystal clear for this year. And that would be ELA, intensive reading, and science. So in ELA, we're beginning our year 2 of our adopted resource Study Sync. We continue to offer advanced coursework as appropriate, teaching a full grade level ahead in ELA. We've introduced 2 novels per grade level, that support themes related to our core essential questions and units of study this year. Teachers across the district chose those novels, and they're quite excited to apply mastery of learning, building student stamina, and critical thinking skills, as well as a love for reading through discussion of these great reads. We will also be intentional with our supports for level 2 students, ensuring they don't slip back and continue to progress toward mastery. For intensive reading, in addition to our Common Lit 360, administrators are doing weekly walkthroughs, looking for patterns and trends, and providing ongoing feedback to our intensive reading teachers. We're also providing quarterly trainings for those teachers and progress monitoring students regularly to target what's working and what strategies may need to change to accelerate each student's growth as a reader. Finally, for science, we are focused on the nature of science in all of our classrooms, helping students to understand the process of science along with the concepts they are learning. This is an area that we continue to score low in year after year. We are also focused on explicit vocabulary instruction related to science and students' ability to apply those terms both inside and outside of the classroom. All in all, we believe our teachers are doing amazing work and focused on using every minute of every day in every classroom to provide the highest quality of instruction. When they or their administrators ask our curriculum team for ideas, tools, and support, we do the very best we can to meet each of them on a personalized level. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Dunverno to share about Venice Middle School's success in areas they continue to grow.
Thank you, Mrs. Meckler, and good afternoon, everyone. And honored to represent our middle schools and honored to be part of Sarasota County School Board and our great schools. Working at elementary, middle, and high school, I really been very fortunate to see that continuum, and it's a great work. We heard from our wonderful principals and staff at elementary to the great staff at middle schools and high schools. We're in a wonderful district, so celebrate the things we're doing well and how do we focus to continue to improve in the areas that we need to improve in. So that is that word. I'll echo that Mrs. Meckler said, is that focus, and I really believe that helped us at Venice Middle School with the work that we've been doing the last number of years. And looking at the next slide, talking about celebrating, you know, we went up in 8 of the 9 grade categories. I haven't seen that I've been at Northport High School, Tuttle, and now Venice Middle. So it was you know, cartwheels were happening, backflips, all that fun stuff. But it takes a lot of work over a long period of time to see that happen. And the hardworking staff at Venice Middle School, it is really that team effort and the support that we get from the district to see that, and then focus in on knowing each student where their needs are, and really being able to talk with each teacher, each staff at Venice Middle, and say, all right, how's it going with this student? You know, we have 761 students, so we need to know each student's story, connect with the families, and then when it comes in the classroom, meet them where they are and make sure that we have the bar up, because they will get to that expectation. We know that with our students. You put the bar there and give them the support, and they'll raise and to that level. So we saw that at Venice Middle the last year, and we'll continue to work knowing each student. One of the things that we've done, I'll talk about it a little more in another slide, is called the co-teach model. Just to give you an example, it'd be as though Mrs. Meckler and I were 2 teachers in one ELA classroom, meeting the needs of those 22 learners. Perhaps 8, 9 of those students are students with an individual education plan. So it's an inclusion model, like you heard from Venice L. We have that at middle schools. Ours is unique, where Mrs. Meckler and I would be teaching the entire classroom, but she might take a small group, I might take a small group, then we come back together, do direct instruction in Tier 1. It's very innovative when you see a co-teach classroom. You go in, it's very seamless. We do that at each grade level at VMS for English Language Arts and math. And we're very fortunate with the staffing and the master's schedule and our well-trained staff with the support of the district to have co-teach work now in our 4th year. And we're seeing those gains with the students who've had that experience in elementary, middle, and high school, being in an inclusion classroom with their peers. So that's an important thing that I think has had an effect at VMS. Also, we talk about the strategic plan. And of course, strategy 4 is having the arts really a foundation for our learners. and we were recognized at the state level last year, and I want to give a shout out to our district support, Angela Harfkison, Brian Hirsch, and the team for helping us build up our enrollment in the arts. We're the highest enrollment in the arts in any public middle school in the state of Florida, and that's to our great teachers as well, band, chorus, orchestra programs, and the performing visual arts. And we see that at middle and high school, especially, but it's built off the foundation, of course, they've had in elementary. So we're proud of that. And of course, we got a couple district championships in sports, but I'll leave that to high school because they have more sports than we do. But also, we work a lot in the community at Venice Middle School, and I know all of our schools do, but that's important to recognize that because we've had a hard number of years in our country, world, and in our community. We need to continue to support our community with community service and help our learners see that they can make a difference beyond the school with what they're doing out in the community. So we'll continue to do that at our school, and I think that's a big part of supporting Sarasota County with our neighbors. Going into our performance review, just a few things that from last year, and then I'll talk about what we've done differently this year and continue to focus on. It was our PBS model school. That took a number of years to get that, and we have been a model school as many other schools have. I think that the one example I'll share with you is we noticed in November of last school year we were having a lot of referrals from the buses, and they're middle schoolers, so there is some behavior that goes on the buses that you won't see at high school and elementary. But we identified the problem. We worked with transportation, our bus drivers, and introduced our PBS model on the bus as well as at teaching the students about respectable behavior on the buses. And by even the next month, we saw a drastic reduction in students that were getting in trouble on the buses, more students following the bus rules. But it took that team effort, identifying a problem, coming up with a solution, getting district support, and that helping our school climate and helping our bus drivers because we know it's a very difficult job. So it takes that team effort. It takes our great teachers, our classified staff, our food and nutrition, our bus drivers, our district support, and of course our involvement from parents. We saw, and I think Mrs. Del Castillo will talk about this as well, our parents are satisfied with what we're doing. We're seeing that in the data from our parent surveys, and we're seeing more parents fill out those surveys, which is great. And I'll talk about one of the things we've done more this year to help that outreach with parents. So one of the other things under collective efficacy, which is working together for the success of all, as we know is our vision for the district, is really knowing what the goals are. And we really hyper-focused at Venice Middle on achieving those goals and then reporting out on them. So at the mid-year last year, we met with our teachers, our school advisory council, and we said, here's how we're doing halfway through the year. And are we going to meet the goals? We thought at that time we were, and we met 4 of the 5 school improvement plan goals. And like as Mr. Renoff said, it's a living document. We review those goals, but in order to stay with our strategic plan, we need to know how we're doing. So we progress monitor, we meet regularly, and we notify our stakeholders how we're doing, and then we take action. So we're excited about that, but we know we need to still continue with science. Although we made gains in that, that's still one of our lower areas, as well as English language arts, current lowest quartile learning gains. We made gains, but we're at 45%, and that's something as we look at the next slide, how we can continue to get better is strengthening our co-teach model. One of the things we learned, and I talked to Mr. Cantis about this last year, was what are some other districts doing that are moving the metric for students with disabilities? And we introduced this year what's called a support period for our co-teachers. So the example of Mrs. Meckler and I teaching, maybe I'm the ESC case manager on that team, or on that co-teach team. So I will have a class period where I have a support time where I'm helping students, calling parents, and help writing IEPs, monitoring the data. And that's something that I think will help because we haven't done it before. It's more innovative in that way. And it also gets the parents involved because our teachers are reaching out proactively to say, here's how it's going with your student. And they're being able to get positive feedback from parents more frequently. We've heard from all of our parents and say it's very beneficial. Some parents are asking, well, don't call me as much, but email me. And so we meet them where they would like us to meet them on the communication loop. One of the other things under all classes, what we're doing is that support, and thank you to the school board and our district for the Jump Start, we're using that this year. I'm pretty sure everybody here watches Netflix or some kind of on-demand streaming service, right? So it's like that. The traditional tutoring is you identify students, you get them in, and you see them every day. But we know our students are busy after school. Our parents may not be able to get them to tutoring, and the teachers may not be available every day. So it's more on demand. So if Mrs. Meckler and I are that co-teach team, Mrs. Meckler might say, all right, on Thursday I'll be available to see 5 students. And then we communicate with the parents. The parents, if they can't get them there, we'll meet them on Zoom, because that's one great things we learned from concurrent teaching. And so we're able to meet their needs more frequently. We've already seen up to 90 students in tutoring, where when we did this traditionally, we might only see 100 in the whole year. So, and that's just at the mid-quarter. So we're doing that with the support of Jumpstart. And that's something that is also, we haven't done it before. So in order to really move in the direction of getting better, you have to sometimes try new things and then monitor how they're going. PLC, I know it's one of our strategic action items, and we're doing that with the support of our district staff. We get a lot of professional development, and that's something I think we can do even more of, because we weren't really able to do that as much during the pandemic. And we need our teachers to be well-trained. We need that support at the schools. So we're going to continue that model with having our district support staff and our teachers get that professional learning, because that's what it's about, learning and continuous improvement, as Mr. Renoff said. So I think that's something we're focused on, is how do we get better together. And lastly, it's about time and resources. I'm a big believer in that. From a classroom teacher to an assistant principal to principal, it's how do we have more time in the day and resources. So we're trying to be creative with that time, with teachers being able to get some contract time outside the duty day to plan together if they choose, as well as getting those resources in through grants, through all of our community support, and provide the best education for our students in Sarasota County. So thank you.
So one thing I'd add for Mr. DiNverno before we transition to the high school, he actually teaches a class at Venice Middle School, which he came out of
the last 2 years.
Florida leadership. Yeah, that was one of the things that he took from that. But he teaches a Spanish 1 class, and I've been in his class. So I've had to observe him a couple of times because he doesn't have anybody on campus to observe him. So he does it. He
does some fun with the students, and I did concurrent teaching. That was the hardest of my 25 years in education. 10 of them at home, 20 in classroom.
Good job.
I'm glad I don't have to do that this year, as well as other teachers, I'm sure.
Okay.
Well, Tomas, I want to thank you for this presentation, and I want to thank you for using pictures of your wonderful music students in the slides. I think that helps. I really think the music programs, the arts programs, of course, everybody knows that that's a big thing for me. I just returned from an SMEA board meeting in Tampa for the last couple of days, and we were talking about, new music teachers coming out and how do we support them. And I'm concerned about, are we mentoring or supporting our new teachers, period. I know many teachers that come and they get very frustrated because we aren't reaching out to them enough. So I really feel like you probably are. But I think the co-teaching is a great idea. I think that's a fabulous idea. But I know that you're doing well. I know that your scores and other things are up there. But, the whole school culture is really great at Venice Middle, and I so thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Shirley.
Yes, I want to thank you for, again, showing us where we're going and what we're at. My husband tutors students. He had a middle school student this past week that was getting hundreds on the homework all the time, but failing all the tests. And what is the problem? Well, the problem is she was able to take out her phone and click on the problem and get the answer. And that's all she had to do her homework. But of course, couldn't do that on the test. So once they figured out what was happening, was able to do it. And I'm like, the things that these kids have access to these days. So yeah, they can get those answers, but they don't understand and they don't know. And so, I don't know where these kids learn these things, but it's something we need to watch for. That those things are out there, and we were just blown away. We didn't know that was out there, and who does that? But our kids are doing that, so they're not learning, and that's why we need to be focused on what those kids actually are doing, not just in the homework, but in those tests, and because that's where it counts, is, you know, while we have those tests to figure out where the kids actually are. So that's why an A might not be an A. But thank you for all the work that you do, because I know these kids keep finding ways to get around it.
You're welcome, and thank you.
All right, does that bring us to the high school? All right, well, I will spend the next few moments. Oop, sorry, did you have something to add?
Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm going to spend the next few moments reviewing some high-level data, providing some reflections on the work that we accomplished last year, and then talking about the work we're doing now. And then I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Del Castillo, who will really steal the show for the high school segment. So, when we look at our EOC data, 6 of our 7 schools increased in percent in achievement level 3 and above on the Algebra 1 EOC. When we look at the Geometry EOC, we saw 4 of our 7 schools increase. And for biology, it was also 4, as well as U.S. history. So that not only tells you where we were successful, but also gives you an indication of some areas that we'll be focused on this year. When we go into our FSA information, 5 of our 7 schools increased at grade 9. We are particularly proud of that work. We haven't really seen that in the past. When we look at our grade 10, we only saw 3 of our 7 schools increase. So we are paying extra attention to that transition between 9th and 10th grade this year. When we look at our ELL data, we are celebrating the fact that we saw a 4% increase in our ELL students making learning gains, and that is a little above normal for us. When we look at our students with disabilities, we saw a 1% increase in learning gains and a 2% increase overall in our lowest quartile students making learning gains. And then we also want to celebrate the fact that since 2019, we've seen a 6% increase in our college and career acceleration. So as we look at what we did last year, we are focused on a few highlights. I call them our top 7. Our instructional facilitators at high school, we added 2. The work was focused at Booker High School, and then we've split one of our people between Northport and Venice High School. In particular, at Booker High School, they saw phenomenal gains, and when you talk to Dr. Shelley about those gains, she attributes a lot of that growth specifically to the instructional facilitator who provided interventions with her intensive reading classes. When we also worked with our schools last year, most of them instituted an after-school credit recovery option, which is not something that we have had in the past in our high schools, and there was success seen from that. It would not be directly related to our FSA and EOC data, rather the students earning passing grades in coursework. In addition to credit recovery options, we also saw after-school tutoring, and much like Mr. Denverno shared, we saw some really creative scheduling options. A lot of on-demand. Riverview had a particularly interesting model, and all of our schools expanded from just what you would have seen in math and English to other content areas as well. We provided training for our English and math teachers last year, specifically English 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then our Algebra 1 and Geometry. That was across the board. It equated to 2 full days of professional learning where the teachers were coming together, analyzing standards, and talking about how those standards applied in their classrooms. When we look at our intensive reading work, we also saw some significant growth in how our teachers looked at the data. Since Erin's sitting next to me, I'll highlight Riverview. Specifically, Erin had a few opportunities where she pulled her teachers together. They went through a decision tree process to identify what the specific needs of their learners were. And we actually took that model and we've evolved it a little bit this year, and I'll talk more about that in the next slide. But that is work that we were able to accomplish last year because we had Jumpstart funds and were able to provide substitutes for teachers. We were able to look at resources that were needed. So we were excited to see the results from that. In addition to that, we did add graduation coaches, and we are seeing the positives in that regard. I'm sure that will be addressed at some point, but that specific targeted look at the work is important, and we are also seeing that in the areas of acceleration as well. And we have added an acceleration program specialist position this year. So Dr. Tiffany Jennings, I believe Sue mentioned her earlier. She's not only working with our high school teams this year, but she's working on building a pipeline for elementary, middle, and high school. So as we look at what we're doing this year, I really want to highlight two areas, and I'll add a third just because of some information that elementary shared. But this year specifically, we are targeting our work with our intensive reading classes, formerly known as our intensive language arts courses, and in our Algebra 1 classes. We are working specifically with the teachers of those classes. We're providing. Right now it's one day. If that one day turns out to be successful, we'll replicate it again in January, but we're pulling those teachers together for a data analysis day. But what we're doing differently is that day goes beyond just looking at the data and across the progress monitoring tools. It looks at what are we doing in response to that information. So in addition to the teachers present in the room that day, liaisons will be there as well as any administrator who oversees that content area. So not only are we looking at the data from a high level, but we're looking at it student specific and can make decisions to help support our students. So we are excited to see how that turns out. Our first round of those trainings starts in 2 weeks after the FAST data is out. So right now we're just in the planning stages for it. The other area that we are incredibly excited about is our students with disabilities. We've been working with our ESE APs and our APCs, as well as the liaisons at the school level and our program specialists at the district. They have come together for their first meeting. It was just, I guess it's been about a week now. About a week ago, we pulled them all into Blue 221 for a full day where they looked at their LEA data as well as their dashboard data, and they started taking a look at where there are gaps for their students with disabilities. From that meeting, they developed SMART goals. They are taking those SMART goals back to their individual school sites to work with their leadership teams there. We will be meeting with those leadership teams in about 3 weeks to hear what their progress is. This project will encompass the entire school year. So in June 6th, we'll return to that team. Well, we'll return to them multiple times for progress monitoring, but on June 6th, those stakeholders will be reporting out to us to share what impact did this very targeted work have on the students at your school. So that is another area where we've gotten very narrow in our focus, and we're looking to see great results. The other piece that's not in bold font on the screen in front of you, but one that was referenced in elementary, and I'll point out here, we are in the process of developing classroom walkthrough tools for all of our core content areas. We developed one last year for our intensive language arts classes, and we saw some success. We had some great professional learning conversations with principals last year, and we were seeing it trickle down to the classroom level. With our strategic plan, we've been able to really highlight that we're doing that same work in all of our core content areas. So the way we're doing it at high school is we've identified an instructional leader in each of the 4 core content areas. They're meeting monthly with us, and they're developing this walkthrough tool. They're helping us talk about what is important in their content areas. So with that, I'm going to hand that proverbial mic, over to Erin, who will steal the show talking about Riverview High School.
Mic check. Thank you, Catherine. I'm very honored to be here today. Mr. DeVerno and I actually worked at Northport together. I did not teach Spanish. I taught English and reading. And then Catherine and I have worked together, I think, on reading and English for well over a decade. And I would say a lot of things that you're seeing at K through 12. I was at Venice Elementary, very proud to be part of that school and what Dr. Hutchinson has been part of it. It really is a K through 12 approach if we're going to make a difference with our students. And I think that's what you're going to see in all our presentations is best practices look same but a little different to address the needs of our students. And this kind of collaboration is wonderful so that we can all reinforce what we're doing and how to help all of our students on our campus. So what I will say is that we are the largest comprehensive high school right now. We are at 2607 and counting. And it truly takes a village. What I'm talking about today is not me. It is everyone that works with me and the community and the staff and my mentors and everyone that works to help our students. I'm very proud and honored to serve Riverview. I'm in double digits. This is my 10th year serving Ram Nation, and I'm very proud of the Riverview community. And I do agree with Madam Chair in that it is not just about the academics. I am going to highlight some other areas because there is a lot of different programs that keep our students engaged. And through that engagement, we can make them successful later on in life. and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that they're passionate and excited about that next pathway so that they can get that career opportunity of their dreams. And that's really what we want, and I know that's what Mr. DeVerno wants when he sends them to high school to get them properly prepared. So first and foremost, I would say that we had one of our best years yet. We had a 61-point increase over all 10 grading calculations. I did have a 5-point loss, but I would say that that is a win overall. We had 3 categories where I had double-digit gains, a 12% gain in my lowest 25% in ELA, 15% gain in lowest 25% in math, and an 18% in math gains, which is phenomenal. We took a pretty big hit post-COVID. Ms. Brown, just like you said, that was called Perfect Math was that app. Just to let you know, that's what a lot of our children used during concurrent teaching and learning, and it showed in our math scores last year. So math was really one where our students had a lot of gaps, and that's where a lot of our tutoring jumpstart supports came in last year, and that's what we're really working towards this year to help our students. When we talk about kind of opportunities for our students, we do have the highest IB enrollment. IBDP is our diploma program. It is our most rigorous program that we offer, and I have about 800 students that are part of that program at any given time, and if students do complete that diploma program, they get 100% Bright Futures in Florida, and they can finish up to 33 credit hours at the state college. So that is a really great program for our families and our students to have an opportunity to do. We also offer an IB-CP program, which is our career program, which allows students to do the IB curriculum but focus on a career pathway. And we have 8 different pathways right now, focusing from engineering to performing arts, to JROTC, to entrepreneurship, in which students can really focus what they would like to do and really use that to go above and beyond. I did have a graduate last year with IBCP that had a $360,000 scholarship to Dartmouth. So it is really a program that has become very well renowned, not only in the state of Florida, but nationally and well recognized. And I say we have the highest enrollment because we've also moved towards every single student take an IB Lit and Lang class, which is a rigorous English class, because we believe that they can do it, and we believe that every student should have those critical thinking skills. And that's been a 4-year journey. This is my 4th year in it, and we are now seeing the gains of that program. So every student is an IB student because we are an IB World School. Another program that is very unique to us is the Stars to Starfish program. If you've never been part of it, you should really come through. We are one of the 3 high schools in Florida that have a planetarium on site, and then we also have a partnership with Moat Marine, in which we have an aquadome where we raise snook. We actually raise seahorses, which is quite a sight. And clownfish. And then the students come through and they actually not only take care of the wildlife that is part of that, but they also allow thousands of elementary students. Thank you, now that COVID restrictions have eased up a little bit, we now have our elementary students back in the planetarium and in the aquadome, and our students are interns, and they get to teach our students about the marine life that is right next door in Philippi Creek. So that program has grown. We have a food forest in the back. We have 3 therapy chickens that really are therapy chickens. They have long feathers. I believe Dr. Asplin got to pet one the other day. And then we do have some kayaks that we do have our students go out and collect water samples from Moat Marine to see how red tide is affecting our environment. So we try to use our environment as much as possible with our students. And then when I look at just not only those aspects, but also athletic aspects, because Mr. DeVerno's right, I have a little bit more sports than he does, but last year we had our district championships in boys basketball, boys golf, girls lacrosse, and baseball, but our state champions was in girls swimming, and I also had 3 individual state champions in swimming. And then the big thing that we try to push at Riverview is student athlete. So 21 out of our 23 varsity teams had an unweighted GPA of a 3.0 or higher, which is unprecedented. And then, of course, we had our boys cross-country team here for their academic GPA state champions with a 3.8 GPA. So very excited for our students. So how do we get there? It's not only just through academics and through what we're doing in the classroom, it's also about our school climate and culture and what we create. COVID, I think all my colleagues would say, was a tough time for our schools, and we went through concurrent teaching and learning as well as bringing our students back in and kind of, I read a quote somewhere that said, if we think we're going to do business pre-COVID, now post-COVID. We're going to be waiting a long time. This is kind of our new normal on helping our students get acclimated, our families get acclimated, and seeing what they need, I think has been what we've been the most flexible about and working towards. And we're very grateful for the district support, because without those jump start, I think, funds and support, we wouldn't be able to meet the needs of our families and our students, and our data shows that. It really is a collaborative effort. Catherine and her team, Mr. Cantis and his team, have been so supportive of our schools, and honestly, anything I've ever asked, he said yes. So I'm going to go with that trend because it's a wonderful one, and it's really helped our students and our families be successful. So we were a PBIS model school as well, first time ever, which we're very excited about. We have a Student of the Month and a Teacher of the Month program, and the reason I will mention this is I actually got this out of my days in elementary school, because what works in elementary works in high school. You just got to tweak it. But we have our RAM 4 expectations, in which right now our teachers just nominated, we teach about respect. Our teachers nominated one student for respect, and then I will actually go into lunch and I will congratulate those students on the mic. They will get a treat off my treat cart, and then they get to see who nominated them and why. And every staff member only gets one nomination, and then we flip it in October where the students nominate staff. And I get to go around to the staff, and they get to see all of the students that nominated them, and they get a little treat off my treat cart. And what I will say is during COVID, when people really kind of were struggling with their why, this is something that teachers told me again and again and again, and students, where, wow, I didn't know Mrs. So-and-so thought that way about me. Wow, I didn't know I meant this so much to this student. It really gets to the heart of what we do and tries to keep that morale up by also using our PBIS expectations. And I will say the most popular thing on my treat cart for kids is gum. It's pretty amazing. They love gum and Snickers. And then we've seen we've seen great results from our parent annual survey, which is wonderful because it kind of shows what we can do better and what we're doing great at. I'm very proud to say our parents feel very safe bringing their children to our school. They appreciate the communication. We've also seen increased parent engagement, especially with our mentoring programs, which has been wonderful because our students need it. And then, of course, we have different programs that really we try to address every student that we can to reach all students in our strategic plan. So Discovery Academy works with students to give them more motivation when it comes to attendance, behavior, academics, and pairs them with a mentor. Our freshman transition programs at the high school allow our middle schoolers, once they get to high school, to be able to be acclimated in a much better way and connect with key staff. The Step Up Summer Program, we've allowed those students to come to our campuses before they even step foot in August, and we found great success with those students because then they get to know the campus, they get to know some of their peers, they get to know some team building activities. It's just a wonderful activity for our students to get used to our campus before August. We have Pirate is not a person, that is our therapy animal. He's a dog. He comes to us every Friday, and he actually wins Staff of the Month pretty regularly. I have to have dog bones on campus, and he's actually, there's a great picture of him with it. He looked very proud in the picture. But Pirate has been something that's come to us that has been wonderful. He brings so many smiles, so much joy to not only the staff, but the students. And he goes into actually certain classrooms and they work on social activities with the animal. It's been a beautiful thing. We have Apex Celebrations, which is our students that are trying to get course recovery. We celebrate them as well. And we really have lunches for them to try to encourage them to finish up their credits. And then Digital University is something that we implemented last year, which we taught our 9th graders. We saw an uptick in cyberbullying and just social media not being a good digital citizen is what I will put it as. And we saw a really big uptick after COVID. I think there was a lot of middle schoolers living on their phones, and when they got to us, there was no rules of engagement. So we felt the best way to address it is to teach our students and our staff and our parents, what is harassment, what is cyberbullying, how can you identify it, what are resources that can help. And we have seen a huge decrease just with that 9th grade class in our data. Collective efficacy is huge for us, and our PLC is really IB for all. That's our Lit and Lang class. We have trained our teachers. They have mentors. They collaborate together. They build common assessments. They have a coach that comes in, but that IB Lit and Lang for all, we have been watching the data closely because it is a rigorous class. We've had less failures junior year than I've ever had, and I've been at Riverview and I supervised English for a very long time. And I truly do believe it's from the teachers working together, it's those common assessments, it's the progress monitoring, it's exactly what we want to see. And that is really what we hope. 100% of my seniors will sit for that IB Lit and Lang test. I do not expect 100% mastery, but I do expect 100% effort. And that's what we really want. We want them to be able to know that they can do it, they can be successful. And we always say that English is the crux of all curriculum, because you have to read, you have to listen, you have to speak, and you have to write. And that's really what we wanted out of those classes. We have done common assessment. Some are with resources like PENDA, USA Test Prep, some are teacher made. We've done a great thing, just like Mr. DeVerno said, with Teacher Push-In. We've been very strategic with that, with any teachers that needed it, but we also used student data and maybe did small pull-outs when needed, or push-in, depending on what was needed in math, science, history, and English, which was important. And then Snacks for Strats is what we do PD for teachers throughout the school year. Last year, we really focused on best standards, as well as the digital university information for our staff. Data-driven, I think, Madam Chair, you said there's a lot of acronyms, and I think I put as many as I could in one little comma bullet.
Noticed.
I know, I just, ACT, it's not the same boot camp, just to warn you, but ACT, SAT, FSA, EOC, we do all of these boot camps for our students because they work. Giving those students extra time to really be laser focused on the work that they need to do before they walk into that test really does help our students and helps our teachers. We participate in something called Project 10, which is with our grad coaches, in which we look at all of our students 9 through 12, and we get to see what they're missing, what they need. We meet on them student by student, and that's the only way that we've really seen success, is when we're allowed to do that. Catherine mentioned Apex Saturdays. We've also done Apex After School, Apex Sundays, whatever it takes to get our students in. We have been as flexible as possible, because at the end of the day, we want them to graduate and get their credits. Academic case managers is something Jumpstart really gave us a lot of credit for, and that was if we had a student, any student that was struggling, whether it was executive functioning skills, academic, behavioral, attendance, we had teachers and staff that said, I will work with this student, and they became a one-on-one mentor for that student, and every single one saw success. And that was something that was really targeted one-on-one, but we saw a great benefit from it. Ramp It Up tutoring is for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. We've had that with the RHS Foundation, has funded that for decades, and it's something that you can definitely see in our math data that has continued to increase, and it is full every Tuesday and Thursday after school, and it is free to our families. And then after school supports, we did what Mr. DeVerno did. We did virtual and in person, because when you allow those kind of concurrent tutoring opportunities, it really does allow students that have to ride the bus home or have an activity. We had several joined by their phone. It gives them that one-on-one support that they really needed that maybe they couldn't ask for in class. And then I promise I'm not going to go through all of this, because that's a lot. But my biggest thing here is, from an academic standpoint, we really try to figure out what are ways that we can engage our students, because that's what increases your graduation rate and your overall really any kind of academic data. And the big thing is, we have 2 huge programs that came in. The first one is a JFG program, which is Jobs for Florida Graduates. We saw it at South Fort Myers. It comes from the national program, Jobs for America's Graduates. And JFG is a grant-funded position in which they train the teacher to work with the students. They're called treasure hunters, and they focus on work-based skills, soft skills, interviewing, resume. They work with the National Career Association. They do field trips, they bring in speakers, but they basically connect our students to the workforce and then follow up with data. Part of being part of the grant is working with Voc Rehab, which 50% of the students have to be 504 ESE to be part of the program. And what they found from JFG is the treasure hunter follows our students 1 year after graduation, and they have to check in, do they still have a job? How long have they been there? If they don't have a job, getting connected with an interview. It's that follow-up process that's huge, and they found a 94% success rate 3 years post-graduation. So it is a huge program that's been really beneficial for students across the state of Florida and really nationally as well. The Construction Technology Academy is something that Dr. Asplin really helped us bring into Riverview High School. It is full with 60 students. I have a full-time teacher, and really that is a block class in which students get to learn the basics of construction through the NCCER curriculum, and possibly getting CTE credit if they continue on, but they're gonna learn the basics of construction, OSHA safety, electrical, plumbing, framing, and we have GCBX as a wonderful community member that have brought hundreds of trades kind of through the program, whether it's through email, field trips, speakers. And a great success story that I will say is I had a senior who was really interested in welding. I happened to reach out to GCBX, and he is interviewing in about 20 minutes to be a beginning welder. And he is 18 years old, and he is through the moon. And this was a very at-risk student that I don't think a year ago would have been just as engaged. So again, those students and those programs, there are reasons why kids are coming to school and wanting to graduate and be successful. And we're hoping, again, that we can reach as many students as possible. We continue the data chats. We call them data days, where we're digging into the fast data. I don't know how that's going to compare to FSA. We shall see. Not having a writing component will make it more interesting as we kind of dig in. Of course, progress monitoring with all of the different teacher teams across the core, and then continuing to do the push and support for our ESE students to continue to create strategic support. So we actually have a push-in model, and we continue to support those classes, whether it's with aides, with extra teacher support, and to make sure those students are getting what they need. But again, strategic and laser-focused, I think, are the two words that we use with that. PBIS, we're going to continue to work with Digital University. We did a parent university, and we heard our parents loud and clear. They don't want this just for their ninth graders. They think it's important for all high schoolers. And so we are going to be doing that for our incoming ninth graders as well as 11th and 12th. And then our 10th graders that have already had it, we're going to focus on Relationship University, which is called Build Your Roster. And really that's about creating positive relationships in your friends, in your colleagues, just across the board, so they understand how to really build their roster and have positive networking. And again, we're looking towards the future when they get careers and jobs, and what does that look like on the workforce. We have seen a huge amount of staff increase in PBIS. I think I had every single staff member, I just checked before I left today, that nominated a student. So that's going to be wonderful. 120 is wonderful to know that we have that. And we've continued to build our PBIS program. And then the last piece is really, we added an instructional facilitator. That was what we used with our additional unit. So thank you, Dr. Asplin. That's been very effective for us. We have a lot of students, we have a lot of needs, and Dr. Bazinas has really been able to do that. As well as that's allowed us to get an additional counselor to kind of bring down some caseloads, because there was a very high caseload last year to help our students' needs. I also have 2 First Step advisors as well as the grad coach, which has been single-handedly going student by student to see what is needed to make sure that we're addressing those needs as quickly as possible, way before graduation. Our professional development this year is working with Catherine's team on content area reading strategies. And then the last piece is I was very strategic in the placement of our staff. I think I had 48 moves, but all of those moves were very strategic in that departments are near each other, and we can talk about our kids, and it doesn't have to be at a meeting. It doesn't have to be on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock. We're only talking about kids. It can be while we're going to lunch. It can be during a hall passing. We can have those natural conversations. And so I've been very strategic on where my ILA team is, where my world language team is, where my ESE team is. I want to be as strategic as possible to give them most support. And that has been such a positive shift on our campus, because we have really been able to put support in all different kinds of places to support our school community.
Well, that was great. I was going to say it made me tired just listening to you, Erin. I don't know how you do all of this. I really don't. And I have great respect for you and understand the size and scope of Riverview. But this is all great work that's going on. I have a couple of questions, one for you and one for Catherine. Catherine, are we still dissecting frogs, et cetera, in our science labs?
That is a teacher school-based decision, but yes, it does happen. There are procedures that have to be followed when it does happen, though.
Okay. We're not telling parents or not telling students to eat bugs. That was something that I got this morning as well. I knew that was not the case, but one never knows. But Erin, what is the general read on what AP and IB, and I would think ACE, would say about all the scrutiny of books? Because some of the books that we're scrutinizing, I think, have been on reading lists in AP English 4, et cetera.
Well, I would say there are 3 accelerated programs, all college level, and all have different I would say, objectives at the end of it. So I'd say from an AP perspective, especially the AP Lit, I believe they're a little bit more rigid, and Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, because we got rid of AP Lit a few years ago. They're a little more rigid in what you have to address, because it's very literature-based, but a lot of it's the classics from when we used to teach it. And then when you look at ACE, I'm going to have Catherine address ACE. The one thing I will say I know about ACE literature is that it is very specific on what I think the list has to be. With us going with IB Lit and Lang, IB literature, they look at the language as anything. It could be a text message, it could be a picture, it could be a tweet. They try to basically give instruction and critique on anything in which our students can read or experience in a literature sense of the world. So it's really an updated version, at least for us, of what IB Lit used to be, and it's much more accessible. So we have a little bit more leeway on what we can do. It's really about, you have to pick different genres, different time periods. It's more of a matrix. So in IB, we get a little bit more wiggle room, but I think ACE is a little more, less rigid than AP, but not as flexible as IB.
So it's been interesting in the past years. We've watched them go from we don't have an established reading list back to we do have reading lists. What I think they're all focused on is transparency. So we are able to find the information and put it out there for the public or parents or students to see in advance. And then we work with families individually when there are concerns to find out what the specific concerns are so we can work around it. We have not yet hit a situation where we couldn't work to a resolution.
Well, that's good to know. I just thought you might glean some information that I didn't have. Mr. Edwards, would you like to say something? I've still got you highlighted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll wait till the end.
Can I say one thing real quick? So just kind of to wrap up the secondary portion of this, I do want to say I'm really proud of these two principles. I'm proud of all of our principles, but what you see over time, it takes time to establish yourself in a school and establish a vision. And once you establish yourself in a vision, all of a sudden you start seeing the numbers moving in the right direction. And I always say the numbers are all about the kids. You know, every percent you move. Reading, that's the number of students. There's a number of students involved in that percent that's moving forward. So I'm really proud of these two. They work really hard, incredibly intelligent individuals, and very personable, work well with their staff. So, and I want to say Erin in particular, you know, we gave her two big asks here recently. One was the Construction Technology Academy with the JFG, and as well as kind of reorganizing and redesigning the ESE department over there, and over the last 2 years in the ESE department, I think we are really hit our stride over there, and we're seeing some really good things happen there. And number two, I'd say with the Construction Academy, that was a big thing to ask, you know, and put in the school. It's a wonderful program, and I'm not sure she did a great job of pulling that off and getting it in place with a lot of support of certainly our school board, but certainly our community, and the way she brought that community into Riverview High School, pretty amazing. So really proud of her for that and the work she's doing in that area. So anyway, thank you very much.
And I would just like to go ahead and close and just say, one, as you can see, the Goal 1 strategies are intricately woven throughout the work that we do, pre-K through graduation. And I too heard some words. Ms. Meckler, I heard intentionality, and I heard focus. I heard problem solving. I had personalization, collaboration. I can't stop with lessons learned. I heard about engagement and relevance, but in the end, it's really about a true team effort. It is about collaboration in schools, across schools, and across departments. We share what's good, and we share what work we need to be doing. And that is the best. I can say exceptional does not begin to describe our district departments, the support, and our leaders at the school. I mean, honestly, please visit for yourself to see. But I got to tell you, on behalf of all of us, your commitment, your vision, your support, and belief in us makes all the success worthwhile. So thank you all.
Tom?
Okay, before you all leave, there's one tool that would be helpful to me as a board member. I'm not going to speak for my fellow board members, but I'm sure it would be helpful to all of us. I could use a sheet, because there's one word that I heard everybody say, and that was literacy. Every single one mentioned literacy. And I would love to have a sheet broken down by elementary, middle, and high school of each of the programs, because what I've heard since I've been sitting here is that we are creating a toolbox of literacy programs. I need to know what they are by elementary, middle, and if I can, what they are directed to accomplish, because there's everything from dyslexia to reading recovery, all those different, so that a one-sheeter that would allow me as a school board member to follow up when I visit schools, when I talk to teachers, because obviously literacy is a key thing that our school district has embraced as a game changer. So thank you if I can have that, or we can have that.
Shirley? You've accomplished in making me reevaluate my decision to not be on this board anymore. I am just so excited about where you're going. We keep talking about we should be looking at student achievement and all of this, and I think we finally rolled it up. It looks like we're going in the correct direction. I know in the Bowden days at Bowden that we, the staff was still working. Our teachers were still working. We still improved education outcomes. And we saw last year we still improved education outcomes. I think with this plan, I really think we've got the opportunity to be the #1 district in the state of Florida. I think we've got the roadmap to do it. Now, if we can just tamp down all of the other things that are out there, and we can continue to have the support of our community with the extra dollars with our referendum, and move forward. We've got the roadmap to do it, and I'll be sorry to miss it, but I will still be watching you as you get there, because I'm just so excited about what we've heard this morning, and that we're keeping the focus on this and not on all of that other. I mean, because this is what it is. Let's look at that data. Let's look at each student, and also look at our teachers to see what they need. I'm just really, really supportive of what you all are doing, and I'm so proud to have been a part of this. And I hope you take us all to #1. I really do.
So, Chris, thank you very much, and thank you to your team. I know everyone on the curriculum team at the district level works so extremely hard all the time, working on the future, but also working on the present issues that pop up and solve those issues. But taking us forward with the strategic plan and all the hard work that you do, it's amazing. And then I also want to thank our principals, our assistant principals, our teachers, our aides. I mean, these people do an extremely outstanding job every single day. They really do. And it's... And I have to say hats off to them, because they all have their own families. They all have their own students, their own kids that they're also working with, and also all the outside activities that are going on around us. They're able to focus intentionally and work hard on their students and help their students be successful. I can't say enough about this school district. It's amazing. And you're right, Ms. Brown, if we can stay on our path, stay on our strategic plan path, I think we're going to be in good shape.
I want to say thank you again. This was, I'm the timekeeper, and I'm thinking, oh, we're going over, but it was just a really wonderful time. I didn't feel that it was 2 hours at all. I felt like it was much less, because I was interested in everything that everybody had to say. But you all are doing great work, and we appreciate you so much. Steve, thank you for all you're doing. Chris, thank you for all you're doing. Catherine, Aaron, all of you, thank you so very much. We really appreciated this. And We're gonna get there. We're gonna be number one. I think we are gonna be number one. So thank you. And moving right along, up next is Denise Cantalupo and Joe Benswanger for what would be 30 minutes. Is it going to take 30, Joe? More like 10?
Madam Chair, it would be our pleasure to help get you back on track.
Thank you so much.
So, good afternoon, board members. You know Joe and I. Thank you for having us here today. There's two topics that we can sort of blend together, one right after the other, and get you right back on track, as Joe said. You've had read aheads. Joe prepared really very succinct information. So I think that and I know that you've gone through them. They were very brief. So I think if we just stick to this, you can ask, and we'll go through one, have some questions, and then go through the other. We'll be good.
Perfect.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for allowing us to be here today and help answer some of the questions that have been out there surrounding the topic of computers. One thing that struck me as I had the opportunity to listen to the previous presentation that I wrote down is that it was very evident that there were purposeful, strategic decisions toward a specific goal or outcome that were evident through across all the levels. And really, I'm thankful to say that we have adopted that same strategy with our principals as we have worked with them on our computer refresh plan throughout the years. We are in our 13th year of having a standard refresh plan, but what it looked like 13 years ago is very different than what it looks like today, because we've adopted it to meet the instructional needs and operational as well, because it's all computers at the school. But really the instructional needs of our teachers, our school leaders, to make sure that technology is supporting instruction, and that's really what we want to make sure. And the other thing that I was very pleased to notice throughout the presentation is the way technology was consistently infused in instruction throughout those things. So in the provided read ahead, we talked about the current refresh model, what it would potentially look like if we looked at a traditional one-to-one, the additional expense, capital expense that would be a part of that, along with what I'll call ancillary and tertiary costs that would come along with the transitional change. One of the things that we want to be very mindful of in all of this is what the unintended interruptions to instruction would potentially be with a significant change in how we do things, as we talked with Mr. Renoff and the executive directors and curriculum leaders and principals of all that. So kind of with all that, the one thing that I do want to highlight before we jump into questions is kind of lessons learned from COVID and what do we want to do differently because of COVID. And so as part of COVID, we really looked at and we said, okay, there is, so for those of us that have become a little longer in the tooth, we remember back in the day when there was the traditional Texcellence program that the district partnered with the Education Foundation, and Miss Rose was a participant in that as a principal back in the day. And I can remember the days of carrying CRT monitors to middle school or to schools in the evenings as we set up for parents to come and get that. And one of the reasons that program got disbanded through the Education Foundation is because where we went from 10 years ago providing anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 computers to students at home or families at home, it was down less than 100. And because the price point of computers had really changed and the evolution of the smartphone and iPhones and Android level phones. And so as we came out of COVID, we saw that there is a demographic of students that do need access to a computer at home. And through the ESSER funds, Dr. Cantaloupe and I, it was last year about this time, we were brainstorming when we said, okay, we have these computers that we gained access to through the COVID. Before we just look at automatically deploying them as additional computers to the schools, what is an option that would meet this need for this demographic of students that needs access to a computer at home. And the Home Access program was born, and we have taken time to go through the various requirements as an organization as big as ours to make sure that we were adequately prepared. Thank you, Mr. McKinley, for helping with the legal aspects of that. And we began the pilot of it this year at Riverview, and we are actually meeting with the remaining comprehensive high schools this Thursday to begin the availability of that program at the rest of our comprehensive high schools, and then we'll look to migrate down to middle and then potentially elementary. And what this does is it provides an opportunity to check out a Sarasota County Schools computer to a student for home use at home. It doesn't impact the inventory of the school and the instructional design that's taking place at the school. Interestingly enough, or to date at Riverview, since the pilot began to start this school year, I checked with the team this morning. We have checked out 27 computers to Riverview students that are there. Last year, when I was having informal conversations with high school APs that were the liaisons for the district in the STUG, Sarasota Technology Users Group program, I said, just out of curiosity, if you had to ballpark a amount of computers if you had available to check out the students, what would you be? And these were all individual conversations. But interestingly enough, the number was within 25 in all of them, and it was between 50 and 75. And to me, that said that there was a need, but it wasn't a significant need. And part of what Dr. Cantalupo and I have talked with Dr. Asplin and Mr. Renoff about in all of this is we want to make sure that we are not presenting a $3 billion answer to a $500,000 problem or question with that. So with that, what questions can I answer for you all? Because I know at the last workshop there were a number of questions and thoughts that came up that I want to make sure you as a board are clear on.
Questions? Shirley.
Thank you for looking into this and getting back to us, because there was always this one-on-one, every student we should be giving a computer to. And like what we were doing with the Education Foundation, the needs for computers were down. Because I know that we can give a student a computer, but sometimes the one they have at home is better. And, you know, they've got other things on it, and because if we give them one, they can't have their email on it, and they can't have some of their other personal things. So somebody would rather have their own computer that has all their stuff on it that they need besides what they have for school. So I can see somebody not wanting to lug around 2 computers. So that one-on-one might not be the answer, but I can see how, you know, for those students who need it, yes, let's provide it. And I think it's very important that we look at that and not just give everyone a computer. And so I'm glad you've done that study and you've come back with it, and that we are making them available and the hotspots available for those students who need it. Thank you.
Well, I remember when I looked at this initially, and Joe and I have had conversations about this for a long time, a lot of school districts that gave everybody a computer gave them a basic bare bones Chromebook or something that was the low end. And we always said that didn't work for us and for the level of service that we were looking for. But I can remember the Tech Active program, and I can remember helping to facilitate those computers going to Boys and Girls Club classes and to Triad. And this was before Triad was part of us, when it was still part of the Y. But I can remember working on facilitating classes in our community. So we were looking through Tech Active not only for our students, but we're also looking for other community partners as well. So that's what got me to think about it. But I mean, I have no problem at all with doing it through the STUG. Is that what we call? I mean, we got sandboxes and we've got dream boxes and we've got.
It's short for Sarasota Technology Users Group.
But can they can get to us the ones that we would need in a timely fashion. Is that correct?
Well, so I think I want to be clear, kind of two separate conversations. STUG is a community organization
Right.
of basically retirees. It's something that I might look to do one day, and they
35, 40 years, right?
maybe not that long, but and they refurbish computers and they provide them to families, and then the families own them. And they are their computers. And so this is an option for families that are out there that maybe, so the home access computer is something that a student would be checking out for the year. We have security measures on it. They can't just do anything with it, right? And they would check it back in at the end of the school year or when they didn't need it. STUG provides some families an opportunity to own their first computer. One of the things that STUG does, and we as a district look to donate computers that are no longer usable in any of our systems, but could be cannibalized to kind of, if you take 5 of those computers, cannibalize them, and you end up with 2 working computers, and that's sort of what STUG does. There's also a cost with refurbishment that STUG gets donations to do, and they get a nonprofit organization donations for licensing. I mean, there's kind of more that goes into, the devil's in the details, right?
Yeah.
And so what I want to be clear with STUG, STUG was doing a great job pre-COVID of meeting that need. The challenge came when COVID came, that all of a sudden where a home may have 1 or even 2 computers, but if that home had 5 or 6 individuals in it that all now needed to be online on the computer at once, 2 wasn't enough. And so people would go out to STUG. Well, now that we're post-COVID, that dynamic has changed, where 2 can now go back to maybe being enough. But with the home access program, if that's a home with 2 parents and 4 students, and where they could check out 1 or 2 additional computers where they're not having to share screen time, it helps the home dynamic. And it's a strategic decision that is being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, but meeting our students at their point of need.
Joe, I know you mentioned it to me last week, but what is, when you look at our entire school district, you look at the computers that we have inside of our schools, the average ratio student to computer was what?
So at the, going back to our table on the read ahead, at elementary and high school, we do an allotment of 90% to the student enrollment. So for easy math, if enrollment's 1,000 students, they have 900 student laptops on campus, plus assessment labs, plus CTE programs, plus the media center, plus, in that regard. At middle school, it's 80% plus the tech active classrooms, because we have the 6 student stations in all of our core curricular areas, as Ms. Rose knows probably the best of anybody at the table, that are there. And that ratio is there because we had to fit it within our budgetary allotment that's there. So.
All right.
And one thing, Dr. Aspin, I thought I'd point out is, so I was recently having a conversation with a kindergarten teacher who was talking about sharing a cart of computers with her partner teacher next door, and digging into that a little bit more. And this really goes to how do we work to meet the instructional design with the technology? Well, at that school, they had made the strategic decision to have a cart in every teacher's classroom, 2nd through 5th grade, and then share technology in K1 because the instructional design matched up best that way. And so sometimes when we hear, if somebody says, well, I don't have access to X, we need to dig into the details of what's happening at that school with the overall instructional design.
I think that's a really good segue to sort of the end of this, unless there's questions. But this landscape keeps changing. Like, no one knew that computers would be this cheap, this fast, probably, right? So that's when people jumped on board with the one-to-one with Chromebooks. But they're not sturdy, and Joe researched that completely compared to what we use. So there's ever-changing landscape, and with increased testing demands and more online programming, we'll just have to keep monitoring it as we go along. But at this point in time, I think Joe and team really did a great job of saying, like the famous line you keep coming back is throwing $1 million solution at or a $3 million or $9 million solution at a $500,000 problem. So for now, we're okay, but we'll continue to monitor.
Well, I personally think that part of the problem at Riverview High School initially was lack of communication, because I didn't think anyone really knew where the computers are coming from or who was doing what, who was on first, second, and third base. And I think there was a lot of confusion. I know among teachers that I talked to, there was a lot of confusion. They didn't really understand it, nor did anyone else that happened to talk there. So I think whatever we do, we need to make sure that our teachers and our faculty and students understand what we're doing and work accordingly. Shirley?
That 90%, the schools work around it by sharing those carts between classes. And I know, especially for kindergarten classes, it's a problem getting all those kindergarten staff to sign on with all of them. Where are we at perhaps looking at going at 100%, or why don't we? So that they don't have to find workarounds to make sure that there is one for everyone in the classes. Or
Well, and so the short answer to that is staying within a budget. I guess kind of the longer answer is we're continuing to look at ways to meet to getting to that place. How we ended up with the 90% is extensive conversations with our principals to say, at any given point, how many students at a school should be on a computer for instructional purposes. The challenge is that there are times that teachers have to share, but for the most part, we're getting pretty close.
Well, and I know that, yes, it's, for one section of the day, they've got to go on and do iReady. And then, so do you have a computer in the classroom for 6 hours when they only use it for one? So those are those things we're thinking about, and thank you for doing that.
Other questions? I think
Do you mind
that's...
handing me the clicker?
We can
We'll
now
go on to Schoology.
All right.
now move on to Schoology.
Schoology. Everybody, including myself, when I first began, wanted to put an extra L in there. So let me begin by setting the stage. Actually, during COVID, so first, Sarasota County has had a learning management system in place for over 15 years, and we have actually transitioned a couple different times over those years to different platforms based on what best met the needs of Sarasota County teachers and students at that time. In the midst of COVID, the IT department received feedback that there were better options out there than Blackboard. But in the midst of a pandemic and the chaos that ensued as part of it, that was not the time to look at what was on the instructional technology landscape as it related to learning management systems. But now that we came out of COVID and things began to settle down, it was on our short list of applications and solutions that we wanted to investigate in the short term. And so in working with our curriculum teams and others, we began a study, and it actually began, the planning of it began around this time last year and kicked off in January, and we had representatives as part of the study participants from all of our schools in the district, and also to include curriculum specialists at all of our levels, human resources staff, facilities staff, and others. It was about 50 people, because a learning management system provides a lot of different use cases in the district beyond just classroom instruction with teachers and students. And one thing I do want to be very clear today is that a learning management system is a delivery mechanism. It is not a content provider. And because there's a lot of different conversation about instructional materials and that type of thing, and anything in either Blackboard now, our current learning management system, or Schoology, the learning management system identified by the study participants, is the housing mechanism for that instructional material or instructional lessons by teachers, but not a content provider in and of itself. So starting back in January, we met with representatives on the study as part of the study to look at the 4 major players in the learning management landscape: Blackboard, our current provider; Desire to Learn, Schoology, and Canvas. And all of those providers came in and provided a 90-minute demonstration of their product, and then a 30-minute question and answer session to all of our participants. And then we sought feedback from all of our participants, and through that feedback, it was clear that the kind of the biggest takeaway was there definitely was a better solution on the market than our current solution in place. And from there, it was narrowed down to Canvas and Schoology as the 2 potential learning management systems that best matched up with what Sarasota County was looking to accomplish. And this, I want to emphasize again, this is all feedback from our teachers, curriculum specialists. The IT department really just facilitated the conversation and the study, but it was all about the feedback of our teachers and students or teachers and department representatives. From that point, we asked the 2 companies to come in and facilitate a full-day training each with our study participants, and they also provided a sandbox environment, meaning kind of a test environment for each of the participants to work in, import existing Blackboard content, pretend like they were developing lessons, doing instruction, and that type of thing. And then again, we surveyed our study participants to receive their feedback. And through that process, and you'll see in there kind of the table some of the big things that were there, they identified Schoology as the solution that best meets the needs for Sarasota County. Now, one thing we did not tell the study participants, but we did know throughout this process, is Schoology is the learning management system in place in St. Johns County. So when we talk about becoming number 1, sometimes you look at what is number 1 doing. One of the other big things that, and now I'm going to use a few of the slides here, one of the other big things that the participants really noticed as part of the study is the support of PLCs, which is something that we knew was on the horizon as we went into this study, and how moving to Schoology would potentially better support our PLC model. Other things that I'd like to highlight here is ease of use for teachers. One of the big pain points that our teachers have right now with our current solution is it is clunky, and especially at the high school level where they are managing multiple sections of a same course, how they could potentially do that in a more effective way, including just as simple things as adding students to enrolling courses and how they want to do that. And then another big aspect is its seamless integration into Office 365, which is a resource that our teachers and students are using regularly. And while it's not on this, the direct write back of grades from the learning management system to the grade book, so teachers aren't having to do double entry.
Did you mention the transition of the courses from existing Blackboard courses?
I think that's in a future
It's probably
slide.
in the handout, but that was a big question that they had is, well, we've made all these courses in Blackboard, so now do we have to start again? And they didn't. I mean, this is a really good integration system that just will take those over, and they saw that happening. That eased a lot of fear. That was their first, there was a level of resistance to that before they looked at this.
Well, I read your read ahead, and I agree. So I'm in agreement. Schoology. Did I pronounce it right?
You did. You did. Well, and to help get us on time, I'll go through, because most of these points are in the read ahead as well. One key thing that I think is significantly different than our current learning management system that is very much worthy of highlighting is the transparency to parents and the ease of use for parents to be able to see the coursework that's happening in a single pane of glass for those parents with multiple students in the district. That I know as a parent myself is incredibly valuable in helping to support my students. Another thing that is not on here that Schoology offers is a integration with Microsoft's Immersive Reader with a translation in up to 150 languages. So you can turn a student can turn the Immersive Reader portion on, translate it into any one of those 150 languages to get additional support at home when they're working. We'll end with, this is one of a variety of ideas that the team has been working on in terms of helping to ease people's fears into, it's change, right? And change can be scary, but what we want to do is really make it as simple as possible, along with getting people excited, because that was one of the big things that came from the study participants in that, wow, we could have access to this, and it's actually a little bit cheaper than our current subscription to Blackboard. Next Tuesday, this will be a board agenda item on there for your approval. Schoology has come to the table and said the subscription fees for the first year would be free, and that would be this school year. What we'll be paying for is the professional and technical setup, along with potential professional development opportunities, to begin to get it set up now, to then give plenty of runway with the potential objective to be live on Schoology for next school year. But what I want to be very clear about is throughout this entire process, we have been very purposeful and strategic in each step, and as not to get 2 steps ahead, but be focused, have a vision down the road, but not get too hastily down the road.
The training plan in place
Yes.
so that people are well aware, and a communication plan for teachers so they're not surprised by it at all.
And really, the key, kind of the next step is having that approved at Tuesday's board meeting so we can put that professional development plan or begin to work through it with Schoology and our curricular and principals and all of our leaders in the district to everybody to get agreed upon. We actually just met with the study participants last week to say, here's some different ideas that we have, what's your feedback? But I want to be, before I show this video, I want to be clear that our anchor point for the decision-making process and feedback is teachers in the classroom working with students.
That's always good.
We think so. It typically keeps us out of trouble.
Yeah. Karen?
The learning management system landscape
you're
has
streaming.
changed.
Sorry.
Teachers and students deserve a better user experience. With more of our teaching and learning resources becoming digital, Sarasota County Schools needs a robust and feature-rich learning management system, or LMS, that meets the diverse needs of all staff and students district-wide. What makes Schoology stand out from other LMS? Existing Blackboard content can be migrated into Schoology with no additional work by staff. It's easy for both students and teachers to use. Plus, it has built-in PLC support. And Schoology integrates with our existing technology resources. Schoology offers a custom view for even our youngest learners. Teachers can build engaging content and customize their course view to appeal to students of all ages. Schoology provides a dedicated parent interface that allows them to track the progress of multiple children in a single, easy-to-use portal. Parents can also opt in to receive a Parent Digest weekly email to keep them updated on student work and missing assignments. Schoology has 3 substantial advantages over Blackboard. First is enrollment. Schoology lets you quickly search for and add students to your courses. The second is course management. With Schoology, you can easily merge multiple sections into a single course. And third is Gradebook. Schoology works seamlessly with your gradebook. No more adding grades manually. Schoology made an impression on our LMS study participants. You have questions. We have answers. IT will migrate content to Schoology, including all courses and content you are using and creating today. IT will provide various professional development opportunities in the coming months to prepare you for Schoology. IT is currently working on a migration and PD plan. We will have more information to share soon. We can't wait for you to experience Schoology in action.
And that's just an example. We wanted to share with you an example of one of the ways that we want to help with the communication plan and getting people excited about what potentially would be coming next.
Karen.
Thank you. Sounds inviting, and you've done your homework, and the team, I would imagine, are the what we would call the technology wizards from a variety of schools.
Actually, no.
That's even more interesting. I think that, change is inevitable, and everything that, we can provide in quality to make things easier. The piece that I'm concerned with, and that I, as one individual, don't feel comfortable going forward. It's not that I don't agree with everything that you said. I do. It's impressive. But I want to hear from our teachers. I think that right now teachers feel like things are top down and their laps are extraordinarily full. There's a lot going on. I would really want more input, and I would think that this would be something that would be interesting. But having participated as we changed learning management systems through the years, it can be a heavy lift. And perhaps this Schoology is different and more modern, but I want to hear more from collectively from our teaching staff if this is the time, the place, and that they can put this on their plate. And I would be optimistic that they say yes, but I'm remiss to say that I would be willing to just jump right into this without more of their collective input.
And so if I can respond to that in two separate ways. One, I specifically asked that question to our study participants, and the way I phrased it is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Because we recognize that there is a lot being asked. And the overwhelming answer was, after seeing what we would be able to do, yes, there would be a learning curve, but it would actually make our lives easier. The other part that I would say is we plan on having teachers as part of the rollout plan. We've said that the potential objective is to be live on it for next school year, but that's not yet to be determined. Unfortunately, we're at a little bit of a standstill until we can have the contract in place with Schoology, because they have said, we love to work with you, but we need to know the direction that we're potentially heading. So it could potentially be a 2-year rollout if that's what was decided upon.
One of the things that we did with this approach, and it was a little bit different than I think the way things have been done in the past, is we really approached it as a research effort. The whole piece about gathering information as we went. So I don't think we would stop that approach as we went forward. Bringing in teachers as they're introduced to it and collecting information. Because that was one of the things, and I still am, with a lot of the things that are technical things that are associated with the strategic plan, is when is the best time, strike when. It might be too soon after COVID to make some change, and you don't want to make too many changes at once. So I appreciate that comment. I think that's part of our research plan. I think we have to start thinking and talking to teachers about it. And then we're also, when I think of the strategic plan, I also think of the ESSER dollars that are funding a lot of it, and especially the technical pieces. Although it's not funding this, there are other things that it has funded or will fund, and when's the best time to roll out all of this technology at once? You know, I mean, in stages, not at once. So we'll be thinking along the way, and if teachers become too flustered, or maybe we do a phased approach or even a level approach, but we'll get there.
I don't want to fluster them. I'm
No, we don't.
Speaking for
No.
myself, and I am confirming before I will support it. And it's not that I don't think it's impressive, the things that you've shared. I do want more teacher feedback. Collectively, I know that there's a lot going on right now, and perhaps this, I want to hear them say, this is glorious, and whatever scaffolded approach is appropriate for right now. But I think we're reaching a time period where it behooves us and benefits us collectively as a quality school system to include more of their input on the things that we are doing at this level. Just me individually. And it isn't negating or disrespecting all the work that's been done. I think it sounds and looks very impressive from all my experiences. But I think that that one variable is an important one for me. Thank you.
Ms. Rose, I appreciate that comment as well. You know, we have rolled out quite a few things in a short period of time lately, and so that is something that we'll look at and talk about how we can gather some more information before we actually pull the trigger and we can get that information back.
But it is on the agenda for next
It is on the
Tuesday.
agenda.
It is on the agenda, and I guess I would be remiss if I did not say that we are beginning to get to a critical point where if we don't begin to move forward with the potential planning, like approving it at the board and then the planning phase, we would be looking at a significantly longer time frame, which would also mean that we would be on a platform that has proven to be frustrating to teachers as well in the Blackboard
Well,
platform.
one thing we can do, I mean, in the short term or approving this and moving forward, you know, Schoology is going to provide the first year for free of charge, and our plan was to run them side by side anyway. So we still have Blackboard, we still have Schoology until people can, and so by doing that during that first year, and not paying for anything but seeing how it runs, we can gather a lot of feedback by just putting it out there. So I mean, that's the only way that we can get feedback is really put it out there. But the good thing is running it for free, running it side by side so that teachers, if they crash and burn, they still have Blackboard. And then they can let us know.
Correct, and we still would be able to get out of future years with Schoology, if that were to be the case. But we are cautiously optimistic that that would not be.
Shirley.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing this forward because yes, we've found some problems with Blackboard, especially during the COVID issues I think maybe the advantages that we have of being able to talk to other school board members and other areas to finding out what's been working for them and how they were able to get past this. I'm glad at the way that you did it, that you looked out for a couple of other management systems that you reviewed and then said, okay, these are the top two. Let's look at these. And then you had this study group. And I want to know how you had teachers involved in that study group?
Yes.
And some of their comments, their feedback, I thought was exciting, and that they said, yes, Schoology is the one that they thought, more than anything, is the one that is the easiest transition, because that's something we want to have. We don't want to have to input all that information again. I mean, we can just transfer it over. And they said that they wanted it to go as soon as possible. And I think that after the training, which I would think that it's not going to be all that different than what they've been doing, except that there's more new things that are out there that they can use. I mean, I think what we're going to find is that instead of adding things to a teacher's plans, I mean, that this actually is going to be relieving them of some of the headaches that they've had with Blackboard. And the one thing they emphasize too is that if there's another shutdown, we really need to be on this new platform because there were just too many breakdowns in the Blackboard. And I think that it's easy also for the parents to be able to sign on and find out, okay, for all their kids, that's right there, where they're doing and what, and I think by running it side by side, and not dumping it on the teachers, that's what they don't want. They don't want something dumped on them and said, you've got to do this. So basically, we're giving them probably the rest of this year to be looking at it, and those that want to be starting, I would think that there will be a lot of them that will be saying, yes, we want to go full tilt ahead. And some of them, if they want to, will they already be able to, when we're doing it side by side, just transfer to this already?
So those are some of the things that we want to finalize with the Schoology team, but that would be one of the opportunities. And I guess going back to a point Ms. Rose made before, when we first approached principals about identifying teachers, we said we are not looking for your most techie teachers in this, but we are looking for a representative group. Many of our study participants actually, so all of the presentations were recorded, and many of our study participants were given time at faculty meetings to present that information. Several of our study participants surveyed their staff to get their feedback. So I want to be very clear in that when we've sought the feedback as part of this study, we tried to reach as many teachers and users of the system as possible to seek their feedback to make sure we were making as an educated potential recommendation as possible.
So how many teachers from each school?
So there was a primary representative from each school, and then depending on the school, it could have been the entire staff that was then surveyed, or team leaders or department heads. We also did meet with the SCTA as part of the initial kickoff of the study, letting them know everything that was happening. So we have really tried to cross every T, dot every I, think of everything under the sun. So when we came to make a recommendation of this is a potential platform to move forward with, and now we need to look at what are the next best steps for Sarasota County. And that's where I want to be clear that I don't want us to get too far ahead. So to your point, Ms. Rose, and to everyone, whatever the actual implementation plan and rollout plan would be, that of the input and direction of our teachers, our school leaders, our curriculum leaders. Really, IT just helps to facilitate and actually kind of turn the knobs behind the scene, but line that professional development up.
So the teacher from each school, we're supposed to go back and interact with the other teachers and talk to the other teachers about it also.
Correct.
So they would have access, whatever this teacher had access to, she could share it with the other teachers, and they got feedback also.
Correct.
I think you've done this remarkably well, and I support you 100%. And if there's ways that we can help our teachers do their jobs better and help our students learn more and our parents understand more, I'm all for it. So I think this is a great program that you're working for, and I appreciate your diligence and looking at making sure that we're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the teachers don't have to add the grade. We've got a day now where they do inputting grades, and I'm seeing that they don't have to input grades with this, or
no. So what this was is, so there are activities that can be created in it that automatically grade themselves. Mm-hmm. And then what happens now is the teacher has to have two windows open and hand put in the grades that were automatically done in Blackboard over into their grade book. This would automatically, through an automation and a write between the two, put those grades automatically in their grade book. They'd still calculate the final grades, but they wouldn't be doing extra entry into
the
those
teacher
grades.
could review to make sure the entry was correct.
Correct.
We would be looking at that transfer too, to make sure, and, spot check that everything transferred over completely.
Great, thank you.
Tom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. a couple things I just want to highlight here. I think my concern, does this purchase have to go through an RFP process?
It does not. I have worked with Mrs. Tracy Brizendine throughout this entire process, and she would, she would tell you that we have actually able to garner more diverse, deep, authentic feedback through the process that we've gone through than a traditional RFP process. So it does not.
We checked on that early on, just we were
I know.
nervous about it. Yes.
Listen, I did ask this question when I was in my one-on-one with Dr. Asplund, but what my concern is that we have a parents' right movement that have already started, at least through my radar. They're already concerned we weren't transparent and go through the RFP process with school links. And I have I think that's going to rear its ugly head once again in that particular scenario. And it's analogous to what I'm hearing here. Secondly, I would tell you that it would have been more strategic that while you were going through this process, that the board was informed, because that would have been a few months ago, because what is a perception, not mine, but a public perception might be, oh, they were having a workshop and on next Tuesday it's being voted on, and that's an awful short period of time. In fact, when you have a fellow board member who's saying, I'm not sure you did enough due diligence with the teachers, I don't think I can support this yet. I mean, that's the kind of perception that we might have been able to avoid in a better communicative process. The timeline to vote is really short from this conversation to the next. So a couple of questions that I have is, and I whichever program gets picked, I have no dog in that fight. It's teachers that we're satisfying and whatever they think. And obviously boots on the ground's opinion is essential in this process. So what if we vote on this on Tuesday, what is the commitment? So is it a 3-year contract with 1 year free, which would make it a 4-year contract? Is it, what is the commitment that the board is being asked to consider? And I think it's important to bring all that out in this workshop so that we have a good amount of time to digest all that.
It would be a 3-year total commitment, with the first year being free and then the subsequent 2 years as part of it. What we would be paying for in the first year is the technical setup along with professional development, and then in subsequent years we would be paying for licensing, and if at that point we wanted to do any professional development specific through Schoology, we do have out clauses after each of those years, including the first year, that if we chose to go back to Blackboard during this year of running them in parallel, we would absolutely be able to do that. And we could leave it any year. To make a migration the size of this, it didn't seem prudent to just do it in a 1 year, but go ahead and set it up for a 3 years. So there was a level of comfort from a teacher's perspective to say, hey, if I'm going to go through this change, I know that this is where we'll be, in theory, for the next 3 years, or subsequent 2 years after this year.
Madam Chair, if I can continue. The other place that I want to also say that during concurrent teaching, Blackboard broke down much of the time and teachers were frustrated. So I'm not suggesting that, and honestly, I would agree, Dr. Canalupa, that there is never going to be a good time because other programs are going to be happening, other technologies are going to come our way, other processes that we want to embrace are going to happen. So I can appreciate, it's always going to be a bad time. But I just want to make sure that as serious as this is, that the transparency, if you will, is, and that's why I'm asking these questions to pull out this information. What will the cost be? So I understand that the first year is free, but it's really a 3-year program that we're paying for. So what is that cost structure?
So the licensing cost for year 2 and year 3 for the entire district would be $178,950. Our current annual cost with Blackboard is $186,700 and something, but it's right around.
So it's
that.
more expensive.
Blackboard is more expensive than what we
I
have with
thought so.
Schoology now.
I thought so.
Yeah.
So, and let me be clear, Mr. Edwards, we want to be 100% transparent with everybody in all of this. And part of the double-edged sword of talking about this with the board earlier is we weren't sure what the results were going to be of the study. And
In fact, we thought at first it was going to be Canvas. We were kind of surprised when the results came back after they went through all the process and all of learning. And I would like to echo what you said about Blackboard. It's not something that we would have chosen in light of everything that's going on. We would have chosen to look at LMS systems. But because of the frustration during the pandemic and people going out on their own and looking for different systems to use, that was really the impetus for the beginning of the study.
Yeah, and I know that. I know that people were looking at Google and all different other kinds of platforms because they couldn't, they were frustrated with Blackboard.
And if we didn't,
I know that.
And if we didn't provide an answer, or at least start to look for an answer, it was becoming more burdensome to support all the other things they were coming back with.
You know, all I'm saying is that it would have been good to know that you were in that study because it wouldn't have been, from Tuesday to Tuesday, you gotta make a vote. So I just want to say that what I'm lastly concerned with is that we do all of this and then it gets undone in a few months because people don't like the decision that was crammed seemingly fast. So and I'm happy to support it because it all sounds well and good. And as I said, I don't have a dog in this fight. And if it really does help teachers do their jobs and it's a quick learn for them, I'm happy to support it.
How long have we had Blackboard? A long time, right?
Yes.
And it was kind of like the panacea. It was the really big deal. I remember when we got it that everybody was like, oh, we've got the best, greatest thing that there is, right?
Correct.
And then I started hearing people bark about it.
Well, and so I'd have to go back, but between 8 to 10 years, we've had Blackboard
That's what I thought.
in place now. And when we adopted Blackboard, it was the best solution for Sarasota County schools at the time. I joke around in other presentations I do with technology, and I say, if you don't like what's happening in technology today, go to bed, because tomorrow morning when you wake up, it'll be different. Partly what we want to do is make sure that we are always finding the right balance between change and what's best on the market right now. And we are at a place now where we know that change is needed with the learning management system we have. And that now it becomes a bit of a timing issue in all of it as to what makes sense in the instructional calendar year with things as well. And so we are attempting to get it technically set up and then give staff as much, we like to call it runway, but as much opportunity to get comfortable and kind of wrap their head around the change. One of the things that and so in retrospect, I'd have packed the board workshop with our study participants today. So you, instead of hearing from me, you could have just heard from them directly. As we went through it, a consistent comment from the study participants was, gosh, once they start working in it, they're not going to want to get out of it because it's so much easier.
I think, Shirley, you said it really well, too, that once you learn one of these platforms, you sort of migrate to another platform, it's not as difficult. They're all, because of COVID, well, 90%, I would say, or more of teachers are out there on Blackboard. So, and that's where we started to hear the complaints right then. So now to migrate over to this, and it's easier and more, I guess, up to date, more, 2022. I think that they'll see the ease in the transition, but we still will monitor as we went along. I was thinking of the recent rollout with the Axiom curriculum digital CUME files. Whenever we had any difficulty with any of that, it was up to us as IT to run out and to make sure that we smooth things over. So as we go along and we hear of anything, and we try to head it off at the pass so that we make that transition even longer if we have to do it. But we could do that as well.
Well, I've heard some really good things about Schoology. See, I've got it now. But I've heard some really bad. I've heard some people in other districts talking about it and saying, oh, well, you're not using Blackboard, are you? And, I've heard that kind of thing out there as well. So I get it. Tom.
Yes, sorry. Any data that you have, who was your study group, and any backup, if you went, any of that kind of materials, I would forward that to Mrs. Tompkins so she can put that on Nova's agenda under that item for vote so that the public has an opportunity to view it and, of course, board members.
Good point. Good point.
So with that said, Joe and Denise, with Schoology and talking with Schoology, the next board meeting's on the 20th of September, 7 days. The next one is the beginning of October. Is that going to be an issue if we were to move it just to give our board members just a little bit more time, or is that an issue and we need to do it on the 20th?
So here's how I would respond to that. I can hear my staff right now groaning at that aspect because we're waiting to begin the technical setup and all those things. With that being said, if that additional 2 weeks makes the difference for everyone to feel more comfortable, I would rather us recircle the wagons and figure out how we make up those 2 weeks so everyone has a higher level